Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Let's take a break while I tell you about the right standards. I've been running the ZK61 and the Stander i42, and these machines are built and spec'd with 100% heavy-duty commercial components. This saves your team time and money, season after season. Welcome to the dungeon officially.
Thank you, mate. Good to be here.
And I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I know what your name is, but I'm not sure what you want to be introduced as.
Just call me Dan, mate. That's fine. Everyone else knows me as the Mowing Mentor, but I'm Dan.
Yes, Dan, the Mowing Mentor.
Yep.
Awesome. So the dungeon's pretty warm and sweaty this afternoon, a little bit humid in New South Wales. You're also in New South Wales.
Yeah, we copped that storm yesterday. Did you guys get that yesterday?
We got about 30 mils in 45 minutes, I'm told.
Yeah. It come down pretty heavy, hard and fast.
I've got a steel bucket that the dog drinks out of. And It was pretty low on water yesterday afternoon. I noticed it when I was sitting on the back veranda just chilling out, getting some mental health back together. Yeah. And the water come out of the sky so quick and fast. I grabbed his bucket and put it under a downpipe.
Yeah.
And my wife saw me do it and she said, "The rain's going sideways. It's not going to go in the bucket." And I said, "Go back and check." And by the time I went back to check, it was full.
Yeah. Yep. Now, believe it, my tanks fill up pretty quick. A quarter fills up in about an hour when we get the heavy rain. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We're probably going to get some more rain this afternoon from what it's looking like around here. I don't know what it's like up your way. But
yeah, no, it's pretty hot. Still about 33 degrees, I think, outside at the moment.
Yeah, so we're sitting at 28 down here. So it's just 28's pretty comfortable if it's not humid, but it's humid enough, particularly in the dungeon, that I'm going to be as sweaty as BJ.
Yeah, I had to go get the bloody Dyson fan for in here. Otherwise, I'd be in the same boat.
There you go. But one day, if I get more sponsors, I might have to put some air conditioning in the dungeon.
Yeah, I think so. That'll be a good idea, mate.
So, either that or I might move the dungeon into the upstairs attic, and then it could be, instead of a dungeon, it could be an attic.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, it's nice and cozy, and it looks like you're all comfortable there, and you got yourself a drink, and I've got a drink here, so we're good to chill out for ages.
That's it. And just a little shout out to Mo Match too. Thanks for the little.
Will Harford. Thanks, Will. He's good bloke.
Stubby cooler. He is.
Yeah. Caught up with him up in Queensland when we went up there for BJ's show. That was good fun.
Yeah, it was good to meet him and Nicole, and it was great.
Yeah. So you're mid-north coast for New South Wales, and for most people that don't know New South Wales, we're talking Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie, all those mid-north coast towns. They're the most dominant ones that people will recognise.
Yep.
And you're just a little bit inland. You're not right on the coast, but that would mean you get more humidity. You get the rain.
It's surprising here. It's you get the frost in winter, and then in the summer you get that drier heat sometimes. But yeah, just that little 20 minutes, half an hour out of port, away from the coast, and a couple of degrees warmer, and sometimes the humidity can get you. But
now you go another half hour into the mountains, and your altitude will go up so much you get snow.
That's right. Yep, Walker cop snow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Walker, it was on a motorbike.
Yeah, nice.
And people who ride road bikes will know that the road between your place and Walker is one of the best roads in Australia.
So I've heard. Yep, they love it.
Yeah.
I'm not game enough to get on a motorbike at the moment, so leave that fun to you.
Look, if you're game enough to run a lawn mowing business, and motorbikes are not that bad.
No, I've done dirt bikes, but just getting on the road. I've got mates that ride, and I think just for me, I know how everyone drives, and it's one of those things.
I have lost mates on the road, so it's a bit of a somber reality to go, okay, there's a real risk with road riding, and for that reason alone, I ride on the dirt more than I ride on the road.
Yep. Yeah, so it's hard to trust everyone else driving.
You'll hear me talking about battery tools all the time. I love battery tools, but when it comes to dirt bike, two-stroke all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Love the two-smoker. Yeah. So, Dan, let's get a bit more of a picture of what it looks like for you. You've been in the lawn mowing game for a few years now.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
5 years just ticked over. Yeah.
5 years. And before that, you'd spent, what I think you said, about 10 years in your previous life
Yeah, as a plumber. Yep, sure
as a
was.
plumber.
Commercial plumbing
Clean,
down in Sydney.
cleaning, unblocking toilets and
Oh, yeah, sometimes. Typically not. By the time I got to the end of it there, I got out of that stuff.
fair enough. I'd be heading away from that stuff too.
Yeah, no, it was more the set out, the fit out, and yeah,
Yeah, okay. So doing new homes more
the
than
cleaner
anything, or
jobs. Yep.
new buildings.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so that really helps me to understand that. You said you're doing that in Sydney. I would be loath to be like, I'd hate to be a plumber, sorry, full
Yeah.
stop. But in Sydney, yeah, could think of nothing worse.
No, that's right. It was very busy, and then the 5 hours travel every day, that was the killer. So that's why I'm not
Yeah.
doing it anymore.
Yeah, so you'd spent 10 years as a plumber,
Yes.
and I would have thought if you got through the apprenticeship of being a plumber, that it'd be all uphill from there. Like your wage would go up, the opportunity to run your own business, all those sorts of things. I would have,
Yeah, no, definitely did. We were lucky that in that regard, because when I moved out, I was at the end of my first year.
yeah,
So yeah, interest rates back then I think were around 8-9% when I first moved out.
yeah, okay.
And so my wife was working as well, and then yeah, we sort of progressed. And each year I progressed, the interest rates kept coming down, and I kept getting more money. So we started sort of knocking the home loans on the head, and sold a few properties, made a bit of profit that way, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you were living in Sydney as well as working in Sydney
No,
then?
I was on the Central Coast, so near Warnervale area.
Yeah,
So 3 properties I had: Gorican, Gwandolin, and Tacoma. If you know those areas.
I do, because I live in Currumbong,
Yes. Yep.
in the heart of Lake Macquarie, and I work on the Central Coast, so I'm very familiar with most of those areas.
Yeah, no. Our final move, we looked at Currumbong and sort of YE and all them areas, but then
Yeah.
decided to go 3 hours further.
Look, I'm guessing, did you move as you got out of plumbing? So you're talking 5 years ago?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was 6 and a bit, but yeah.
So at that point in time, you could have bought a block of land in Currumbong really cheap. By comparison to what it is now, it might have been under $200,000.
Yeah. It's
But
crazy, isn't it?
it would have been a tiny block of land. No land once you build your house.
Yep.
Because at that point in time, Currumbong was going through the change from being basically rural to being another suburb of Sydney almost.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people move from Sydney to Currumbong now because we've got massive development going on. That's, I think, somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 homes.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard there's even Taree's getting 20,000, I've heard. 20,000 put in.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got to go somewhere. The people are still coming in and people are still having babies, so it's going to keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much. I know you and I might see some eye to eye on some of the
Yeah.
rabbit holes we could get stuck on here in terms of population control
For sure. We could go down
even
plenty of
just
conspiracy theories too.
or even just, more mainstream than the conspiracy theories, even just the fact that the population in Australia is growing so quick at the moment that we're getting a strong divide between the lower class and the upper class to the point where there's
Yeah,
hardly any middle class.
that's right. The haves and the have nots. It's yeah, not
And I
good.
think that for the most part, I don't buy into that stuff. But when you look at the difference between living in a rural area like you are, or where I am, it used to be semi-rural,
Yep.
to living in a suburban sprawl, that's where you really notice that stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots, or the people who can afford to get takeaway as long as it's hot chips, but they can't afford to go out to a nice restaurant.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. That was a big thing with the move and the business.
Yeah.
Just to get on top of that, because the living costs, yeah, the writing was on the wall, and advice from a lot of people sort of
Yeah.
showed me the light, I guess, all them years ago.
Okay, so you moved straight out away from Sydney to the area around Port Macquarie, and I think Port Macquarie at that point in time, the property prices were skyrocketing as well. So
Yeah, it wasn't. We were surprised because we thought, oh, we'll get it pretty cheap. It was still, yeah, it wasn't much difference to the Central Coast. So, and living costs and the rates here are a bit dearer than even the coast is. So, yeah.
But I guess the one advantage there is if you get out of Port Macquarie far enough, you can probably buy a small acreage or something like that. Whereas
Yeah,
on the Central Coast, if you buy a small acreage, you're talking $5 million now.
yeah, that's right. Yep, especially around Matcham and areas like that.
Yeah, definitely. Even around Cooranbong, I've been looking at some acreage properties that come up at the moment. And what I would have thought was worth 1 mil or 1.5 mil, they're going for 2.5 to 3 or more.
Yep, yep,
One of them that I like the look of, $3.5 million, and it's like,
yeah,
I don't see the value in $3.5 million for an acreage in Cooranbong.
yeah. And when you compare it apples for apples, sort of, that's why we're looking to move recently down near Taree Way. It was 100 to 150 grand cheaper,
Yeah, wow.
equivalent properties. So yeah, and that's not on the cards now. We're staying put, so that's all good.
Yeah, and it's a really nice spot. I've had family friends around Port Macquarie. Most of
Yeah,
my life growing up, my parents had friends in Port Macquarie, so I spent a fair bit of time up there, and it's such a nice place.
yeah, it's a beautiful town, and that was the hard part. We didn't really want to leave Wauchope itself. It was just to get closer to family. So,
Yeah,
but
fair
yeah,
enough.
they're still only 40 minutes down the road, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, no, it's a nice spot.
Yeah, can't complain.
Yeah. So, looking at some of those things that are relevant to your decision to change from plumbing to doing lawn mowing, you were working as an employee while you're plumbing. Did you think about going into business?
Yeah, I did. Same thing. I just didn't enjoy the plumbing. I didn't. The money was there, obviously, with plumbing, but
Yeah,
I didn't have a passion for it. I was decent at certain aspects of plumbing. Worked my way up in certain areas, especially like I said, that set out, fit out, roughings,
yeah,
things like that. I sort of excelled at those and made my mark with that. But yeah, decided that I wanted to follow my passion, which the whole time I was plumbing was my own home lawn.
yeah.
And yeah, just experimenting as much as I could with what time I had left after working.
So I'm guessing Lenny's Lawn Fanatics Facebook page would have been a thing when you were getting fanatical about your own lawn.
Yeah, possibly, but even back then I wasn't even on Facebook, Gary. I only got that when I got the business.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do if you're fanatical about your own home lawn. A lot of things I don't do with my lawn. There's things I like to do, but there's a lot of things that just go, yeah, I wouldn't even try it. And props
yeah,
to Lenny for helping educate people through his Facebook group. But
yeah, yeah. Mine was more YouTube, the lawn care nut, and even Brian's lawn maintenance early on.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that provided a lot of info.
That's interesting because compared to the group Lenny's got, which is all about homeowners looking at their own lawns,
Yep.
Lawn Care Nut, Brian's Lawn Care Maintenance, they're all talking about business skills all the time as well. So they might talk about how to make a lawn good, but they are predominantly looking at business skills.
Yeah, so Brian was good for the business side, especially the structuring and the bang, bang, bang efficiency of residential route, like density and things like that.
Yeah,
So that's where that comes in now for the business. But lawn care nut, he's sort of more of, he was in the industry and then he got out to his own home lawns and started to really
yeah.
develop his skills. And yeah, he's, I don't know, 500,000 subscribers or something now on YouTube and pretty popular. So
Is that Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut?
yes, yep.
Yep. Yeah. He's one person I want to get an interview with sometime soon.
Yeah, no, very knowledgeable and yeah, been doing it a long time now.
Can you guess why I want to interview him?
Possibly to get him to mow shorter with battery robot mowers, is it? Or
Well, it's because I've heard him talk about robotic mowers, so you're kind of right.
mm.
Now, I know he loves robotic mowers,
Yep,
and
yeah,
yeah, he thinks there's a big future there for robotic mowers. So yeah,
for sure. No, I look forward to chatting to you about that today.
yeah. Well, I love talking about robots, so plenty of
Yeah,
time for that.
all good.
Yeah, okay. So 5 years ago, you decided to change from being a plumber to doing lawn care, mowing other people's lawns, not just your own.
Yes, yep. No, well, when I first started, it was more the handyman option. I just thought there was more money in that as far as starting a business.
Yeah,
I didn't, from what I'd seen from the outside looking in, I just didn't believe that lawn mowing could provide the income I sort of wanted or required to get the lifestyle we currently have now.
yeah,
So yeah, I went right into the handyman, sort of painting, deck restorations, hanging photos and expensive paintings and fixing fly screens, you name it, I did it. But then I quickly realised that the passion was still the lawns and the gardens, and shifted quickly and started pumping local Facebook groups, and found that worked the best.
Now, what I've done in business, and I notice a lot of other people do the same sort of thing, so trying to understand your perspective, because it sounds a little bit different. I started by mowing lawns and offering handyman services as a way of supplementing the lawns. So when there's not enough lawns to cut, particularly winter time, or when you start business and you don't have a full load, offering some handyman services is a great way to just supplement that income and make sure you can fill your time up and
for sure,
fill your pockets up.
That's right. Yep.
So that was my approach. It was never handyman first. It was lawns first, and then gardening. And I didn't offer a full handyman service, but certainly any little jobs that people needed doing, like replacing fly screens or those, fixing up,
you over,
fixing up awnings, doing a little bit of fence repair, that sort of work.
Yep. Yeah, and it all helps, especially when you're getting going. And I found if I didn't have that, especially like you had pressure cleaning, there were so many things, and they got us through most weeks sometimes, because the lawns take a little while to get going, to build up that reputation and get that amount of clients that you require. And
and one type of business is purely about repetitive work. So you get a lawn and they want you back 2 weeks later, or even sooner than 2 weeks later.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas your handyman work, it's a one-off job. So you need your referral network for the handyman work, but they'll get you to do a one-off job, and chances are over the next 2 years, they might get you back in once or twice to do something else, but they'll also recommend you to 6 friends.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So the referral network's really important where it's not repetitive work. It's just as important with repetitive work like lawn mowing, but
Yeah, and that's the thing. There was, I thought, and probably still is, more of a higher ceiling, I guess, when you do the handyman as opposed to a regular lawn run. I'm sort of finding that I've maxed out currently what I can push it to comfortably with what I want to do. So figures wise, that sort of $4,000 to $5,000 a week is achievable, solo lawn mowing.
Yeah.
But I think with certain jobs, handyman jobs, that you could be doing a job a day at sort of 2,500, figures like that isn't unheard of. So just depending on the type of work.
So higher ceiling, I get what you mean by that now. So you can do bigger jobs quicker than what you can with a lawn mowing job, obviously.
Yeah.
But what about the overheads
That's right, yeah. So that's where it comes in, the trips to the shop for the materials, all of that added up, and just liaising with other trades. That was a big time. It just sucked your time every day, and you're just always trying to time the weather, and there was just so many factors to it.
Yeah, so typically speaking, if you do a lawn mowing job, your expense ratio is going to be probably around 40 to 50% in terms of the cost of owning the mowers, the cost of your insurance and your fuel and vehicle, all those things.
Definitely tax.
If you do a new turf job, then typically speaking, you quote how much the materials are, and then you double that, and that'll give you what it's worth billing the customer, right?
Yeah, just about. Yep.
That's a rule of thumb I've used, and then variables from there to work out, if you're spending a lot more on top dressing or various different things, or if you're going to scrape the top layer off the property before you bring in top dress, then those things are going to multiply those costs very quickly.
Yes, for sure.
But I think a lot of jobs, handyman jobs, or other jobs where you have materials, you can often go, okay, the materials are going to be half the cost of the job.
Yeah, just about, for sure. And even with that, there was a little bit of leeway. You could obviously make money on the material. That was one thing with it. But again, the honesty factor, like it just sort of, I know every company does it. You look at McDonald's, you look at Coca-Cola, they've got their bottom lines that they've all got to hit, and every business is in it to make a bit of profit. So, it was just another thing. I just enjoyed the lawns and the gardens a lot more, and that's what it come down to in the end.
It's a simpler business model, but it's also a rewarding business model, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And the flexibility, which that's why we moved up here. That's what we wanted for our children. So,
yeah. So when you're mowing lawns, your business model compared to doing larger jobs means that you don't need to do the same amount of planning to do a job. You don't need to do any planning to mow a lawn, other than making sure you've got the equipment in your vehicle or in your trailer ready to roll.
That's it. And then it's just fine
a
tuning it to suit.
little bit of maintenance on your equipment, making sure you've got your insurances in place. It's not something you do each job. It's something you do across the year.
For sure.
So
there's that low barrier to entry. Everyone talks about it, and then that's what it is. Yeah.
And that low barrier to entry means there's a lot of people out there that don't even worry about whether they've got insurance or anything to that effect too.
Yes, that's right. There's always a catch-22, other side of the coin.
The other thing, I was talking to my employee about this today, you go out there and you cut a hedge, you turn around and you go, wow.
Yeah, that's right. The satisfaction. Yep.
Immediate satisfaction.
Yep.
You talk to a builder, and I can imagine a plumber doesn't get the same satisfaction as a carpenter.
Not quite. What I was doing wasn't too bad. You could make your everything in behind the wall that no one ever sees, but it's nice and straight, it's nice and level, and you take pride in that, but no one's ever going to see it. So yeah.
Well, I can imagine, if we sync to Ben and BJ's level and talking dirty, you go and test the toilet after you've set the plumbing up, drop a sturge.
Yeah, I've heard some stories when I was plumbing, don't you worry.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of job satisfaction if you can drop a really big one and flush it down and know that it all works well.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, enough of that sort of talk. We'll leave that for Ben and BJ. And if anyone doesn't know who Ben and BJ are, look up the Skull Sessions.
Yes. No.
Great for a bit of banter.
They are.
Believe it or not, they actually know what they're talking about too.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But
love listening to it.
We're going to head a different direction to them today. We're going to talk about some topics where both of us have very different outlook on lawn mowing to what the Skull Session boys do.
Correct.
So before we get into that, you've been working your business for about 5 years.
Yes.
When you first started, you were doing the handyman work. Did it take a little while for you to get busy with the lawn mowing and start thinking, oh, maybe the handyman work's getting in the road?
Yeah, no, I found it's probably anywhere between 4 and 6 months. So I started in September and then, built up. It was leading into Christmas, just making sure we had enough funds there to get us through that first period, because it come around pretty quickly. And I invest very heavily, or early on I did, into the business. Yeah. So pretty much everything that was profit was getting put back in to the business, because we didn't have a great deal of savings at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And I didn't, and still don't, like getting loans and things like that and finance as much as I can. Bit Dave Ramsey-like when it comes to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like the American YouTube channels influencing you there. Although most of the American lawn influencers are very big on don't borrow money, don't get a loan. And then you talk to a couple of Americans who are like, no, get a loan, do whatever you need to do. And then in Australia, particularly Ben and BJ have been talking about it. Nothing wrong with borrowing money to get your equipment.
Yeah, no, I can see the benefit. And obviously I have for the truck and the ute that I currently have. But as a whole, I typically don't like borrowing money. And the goal now is to just pump everything as much as we can, own this house as quickly as we can, and get off grid if we can.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to seek advice from a qualified accountant, because if you're running a really small business, you can run really lean. You can get ahead really quickly by not borrowing money.
That's right. And it's the other way around. If you're trying to grow with employees and it makes sense to get that finance, get that equipment and get going with it, that's where it's got its benefits. So
there's the 30-second cap on what it means to consider the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
But obviously we could go a lot deeper into it. But so going back to talking about you growing your business, you reached after about 6 months point where you're going, actually, lawn care's taken up most of my time.
Yeah, I could really see the route density that everyone talks about. I could start to see that working, and I started doing the math, and I'm going, oh, well, even if you just work out 10 lawns a day, which was more than achievable back then with a push mower.
Yep.
You got your standard lawns back then as $50, $60. So I was looking at $500-$600 a day back then. So Yeah, I started doing the math on that, and obviously I knew I was pretty efficient at it, enjoyed it, and yeah, rolled with that. Started with a bent shaft whippersnipper, Honda 19, what is it? HRU 19D, the
Yeah.
Buffalo one,
Yeah.
and yeah, a little steel blower that I had for years, and yeah,
Nice.
that's what got me going.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting talking about that. The different ways that people start up and what's enough to keep them busy.
Yep.
And looking at where you are, the fact that you can find enough jobs just doing push mowing in residential properties, I'm guessing, is
Yeah.
it's telling, because I would have thought around Port Macquarie you would have moved into using a zero turn fairly quickly to keep yourself busy, because there's so many properties there that are larger. But I guess over the last 20 years, Port Macquarie's population density has boomed, hasn't it? So there's
Yes.
a lot
A lot
more
of new
small,
estates. Yep.
a lot of properties that are sort of around that 400 to 500 square meter total property, which means 200 square meters of lawn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I found that, and then obviously gardening skills, hedge trimming, coming from plumbing.
Yeah.
Sort of had a good eye straight away, but obviously learning as I went. I've got the Stihl HS45, I believe,
Yeah.
and it has the exhaust that shoots down, and we know about the leaf burn that can occur with that, and I found that out pretty quickly on a few expensive properties at Port Macquarie, as you say, and
Yeah.
yeah, so lessons learnt quickly. I was buying things off eBay, little multi tools and things like that, just anything I could afford at the time to help
Yeah.
me, yeah, just gain a few more jobs and get experience with certain things.
Yeah. So even just going to a short pole hedge trimmer that's still petrol, you can get away from that leaf burn. But if you go battery, never
Yeah,
look
for
back.
sure. That's right. No, I haven't looked back since.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So with the hedge trimming,
Yep.
you're saying you had good eye from plumbing. Does that mean that um, you could do your plumbing where you've got wastewater and get your fall just right without needing to check it and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, more so just when you're looking at something, especially if you're in a car park, if you look up, you'll notice a lot of plumbing and you can see the line if it's straight, level, square.
Yep.
You start to get that builder's eye. A lot of carpenters have a great eye as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last house that I was living in before I bought this one, the guy who was living in it beforehand was guess what, a handyman.
Yes.
I believe his trade was boilermaker, but he thought he was handy with the plumbing.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, if you went into the garage and you had a look at the plumbing that was in between the garage roof and the floor of the bedroom up above it and the ensuite and the bathroom,
Yep.
you would have a mental disorder just looking at the plumbing.
Yes. I'll just
It
turn away,
was,
walk away.
it was so scary. And I'm pretty sure if you flush the toilet too fast, you could get a bit of backwash coming back up through the floor drain.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I've seen some things in my time.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, don't know how some people can do that, but I'm not claiming I'm an expert, but
No.
enough to look at that and go, there's some problems.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So then 5 years ago, you started lawn mowing. Now you've been doing it for 5 years, and I've seen your Instagram account. You're not just running around with a Honda Buffalo
No, not
HR.
anymore.
Yeah. So you've grown your business quite a lot,
Yes.
and there are quite a few people around who will know your social media account, the Mowing Mentor. And you've considered a bunch of different things in terms of growing your business, whether you start franchising it out, whether you want to put on more employees. There's a bunch of different business opportunities you've looked at.
Yeah, plenty of avenues. It's just getting the workers to stay on board.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah, and the best I found was my brother. He was as close as I could get. Had another great fella named Max, and
Yeah,
a few other guys that obviously my dad's helped out in the past, just subcontracting. There's been a lot happen over the
yeah,
years, and I've trialed and errored. And at the end of the day, being solo now gives us the flexibility that I want with my family,
yeah,
as well as getting that profit margin and keeping that quality. Speed and quality is the two biggest things I found.
Yeah, a lot of people go through trying different things and going back to solo because it's just easier to only be responsible for yourself.
Yeah, for this stage of our life, just with the kids, they've got so much going on. Heath's 7, Addie's 4, and my
Yeah,
wife's business is just starting to take off. So if I can be home, help her out a bit more with the kids, and her business takes off, then yeah, it's all the better. We make up the difference that way too. So
but you've learnt a lot of skills that you're still passing on to other people through business mentoring.
yeah, so that's what I don't charge anything for it. I just do it sort of
Yeah,
as much as I can help, whatever knowledge I have. You don't have to do it exactly how I do it, but I just tell a lot of people how I do it,
yep.
what works, and if it works for them, that's all the better. But yeah, there's a lot of things you could definitely go and we could spend an hour really discussing just that.
I think we could spend 5 hours really,
Oh,
but
definitely. There's so many different things that people have got to, I guess, the biggest thing people say to me is, oh, my clients wouldn't go for mulching. So therefore I have to
yeah,
bag. And obviously we know the efficiency gains you can get purely just from mulching. I believe, yeah, if they could just take that risk and go, all right, I'll do without them clients, or at least gain clients beforehand, fill up your books completely, and then just let go of those ones that don't want to play ball.
yeah,
Yeah, if that's the avenue you want to go and you really want to get them profit margins up, and obviously provide, a lot of people don't talk about it and they don't think it provides the nutrients to the lawn, but it actually provides so much benefit to the microbes in the soil.
yeah.
And that's a topic that people don't really want to discuss when they're trying to beautify their lawns and spraying all these chemicals when you could just have it as natural as possible,
Yep.
and it does its own thing. So
Yeah. Now, I when I started my business, it was 2010, and I very quickly moved my customers towards mulching. So I already had a number of customers that were mulching and some that were catching, and it was just a natural progression for me to go, okay, this is easier for me to do the lawns this way, more productive, I get more done, and better hourly rate. If you're not selling the customer on the hourly rate, you're selling them on the job rate. You get more work done, you get more per hour.
that's right. Yep.
So, like you say, the benefit to the lawn of returning the nutrients back into the soil is quite significant. So, for me, it was really simply a case of going, you know what, this is a easy business model for me to run, get fortnightly customers, get them on mulching. It reduces the amount of equipment I need to carry around, makes it more
Definitely.
efficient because I'm in my area using the 42-inch zero turn for doing most of those jobs.
Yep. Made
And
sense.
42-inch zero turns are an interesting market because a lot of them are not commercial quality machines, and a lot of them have not a fabricated, a pressed metal deck, which means that they actually mulch better than a fabricated deck a lot of the time.
Yes. Yeah. I had a time cutter, a Toro little 32,
Yeah,
and it left a clean cut. It wasn't anything you wanted to take on a large acreage at all, but it was great
no,
for residentials. Yeah.
yeah. So if you're doing properties that are sort of anywhere from 800 square meters through to 3/4 of an acre or an acre,
Yep.
those small machines are ideal.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
even the residential quality machines, they're great.
Yeah. 100%.
The productivity is better because you're mulching, and the ground speed is less relevant in that case.
Yeah, and the clients you attract to sort of certain ones, either they're renting or they're that busy that they want it looking tidy. They don't want a primo finish. They
Yep.
don't want every last little leaf vacuumed up. They just want a nice house to come home to, look presentable in the neighbourhood, and that's it. So
Yeah. Now, if you're
yeah,
mulching and you're doing a good job of it, then you're not going to see leaves floating around the property afterwards. It's going to
no, correct.
look spectacular, to be honest.
Yep, no, and that's the thing when you know how to do it right, and especially more so the equipment. A lot of people think the 3-in-1 mower is just a standard one that come from the shop.
Yeah.
They think that can mulch as well as a dedicated mulching mower, and it's just chalk and cheese, like day and night difference
Yeah.
to a proper machine that is built for it, as opposed to just putting a plug in and hoping for the best. So
Makes a big difference, doesn't it? I know I played around a lot with different blades on the old, going back to my first mower, the 42-inch Dixon.
right,
And yeah, it was great until the deck got so warped that it wasn't cutting straight.
yeah, that'll do it.
But playing around with different blades, and the best finish I could get with the deck on that, the pressed metal deck, was with the gator blades.
Yes, yep,
It it was, for all intents and purposes, and I'll go back to talking about catching to compare with this, but the finish I got with that was perfect.
Yeah, yep. No, you
And
can't complain.
there are times when mulching is not the best option. I know that I did jobs which I shouldn't have done mulching.
Mm-hmm.
And with that particular machine, you could mulch something that was 30 centimeters high and not have any clippings left over, and it looked perfect.
Yeah, and like I've explained in lots of videos, you got a backpack blower, you can disperse those clippings pretty evenly.
Yeah, well,
A day later they're gone.
with that sort of mower, you didn't even need to disperse the clippings unless you got into much taller lawns or really thick buffalo or thick cooch.
Or full of weeds or something like that.
So a lot of the time, if it wasn't super thick and it wasn't more than 30 centimeters tall, it'd look perfect. Didn't need to get the blower out even.
Yep.
And I mean, of course, you're still blowing grass off the paths and the roadside or wherever it ends up going, or all those sorts of things. But you didn't need to disperse clippings if you did a good job in the first place.
No, that's right. And the amount of acreages I do now and the premium finish that it does and leaves, I just started implementing, obviously the whole time it was 100% mulch mowing, but I just started incorporating what I was doing on the acreages, whether I had a worker or not. You could get on the mower, rip around. And I only just recently did one, and it's like, well, you could have someone doing the edges after you had gone and done the mowing, and you get that tidied up with the blower, and it's all the better for it. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's just so many different methods, and figuring out that efficiency, what's required. I truly believe that mulching as a whole, like I said, 100% the whole time I've ever done it. When I was at home, it's all I had time to do, Gary. When I was plumbing, I got home so late that I just had to rip in and get it done. And so originally it started out as a time gainer, and then I did a bit more research and thought, oh, well, it's actually beneficial, so that's a bonus.
Yeah. I think the other factor that's really important there, particularly given that you've watched a lot of lawn care nut, the cut height makes a massive difference when you're mulching.
Correct, and frequency. If you can get on it more often, like we're going to discuss weekly, I'm sure, weekly visits to properties, it's a huge thing, especially when I'm mowing my own every 2 days at the moment. It's it's got to be done.
I'm in the fortunate position where I can mow as frequently as I want to mow. So if I put a robot on a particular area, then it's cutting every day.
Yeah, and that's going to be the benefit in the future. This is what's coming, and I'm very excited because it's just going to free us up to do so much more for the clients and ourselves at home. I enjoy mowing, and I think I still will, but the robot just keeping it under control is going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah. So if you're cutting weekly compared to fortnightly, that means that you're taking less off the leaf each time you cut.
Yes. And at the moment, it seems it doesn't really matter. It's growing that quickly, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, typical summer growth is somewhere around 4 millimeters a day.
Yeah. Yep.
And that number is actually pretty arbitrary because I believe it comes from areas where they irrigate and don't actually get a lot of rainfall. But given that we're in New South Wales and a lot of people listening will be Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, you know that when you get a lot of rainfall on the East Coast, that goes from 4 millimeters to 10 millimeters in a day.
Easily. And then the storms, like we've discussed, the nitrogen being carried down in that rain, it's just naturally doing it, naturally fertilizing your yard even more.
Yeah. So take that number, right? That's probably extreme growth, 70 millimeters a week, 10 millimeters a day, 70 millimeters a week. So if you're taking a third of the leaf off every time, at 70 millimeters growth.
Yep. Yeah, you got to take the brush cutter to it first sometimes and then mulch it up afterwards.
Yeah. If you're catching the grass, that's a lot of grass.
Oh, yeah. Stopping every 1 or 2 passes, I'm assuming.
If you're mulching the grass and you've got the high growth period, weekly cutting means that you can often do it in one pass and it still looks very tidy.
That's right. Instead of double cutting.
But fortnightly, you're talking 140 millimeters of growth.
Potential for sure.
And sometimes more. Like we'd say, some lawns you turn up and there's 30 centimeters growth.
Oh, yeah, easy. Yeah, it's been ridiculous lately.
So, yeah, if you if you change from fortnightly to weekly cuts, then mulching is not only better for your lawn, but it also means that it's going to look decent when you're mulching because you don't have a huge amount of clippings sitting on top of your lawn.
That's right.
The clippings are smaller and finer, and there's less of them, and they go back into the soil instead of sitting on the lawn. And I know a lot of people talk about the grass clippings creating thatch. They don't actually understand what thatch is.
No, that's right. And that's a misdemeanor. Sort of people throw it out there thinking that that's the case, similar to, oh, you mulch, you're bringing in weeds to my lawn. It doesn't actually happen when you're doing it correctly. If you're mowing tall enough, thick enough, and we'll get into that argument as well about mowing shorter, it's frequency of cut is the main thing. As long as you're mowing often.
Let's talk about the height of cut, because I think that's extremely relevant, and we're going to disagree on this. So,
let's go there.
Let's do it. So, height of cut is relevant to the type of grass and the location you cut and the desired result that you or the customer want. And if you are talking a fortnightly cut and you scalp it, you're exposing your grass and your soil to a lot of risks. So you do a fortnightly cut and you scalp it, and scalping it might mean cutting at 1.5 to 2 inches if it's a fortnightly cut. If you're cutting 2.5 inches, you might get away with a fortnightly cut, but I doubt it.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Essentially, what you're doing there is you're creating a opening in your lawn because it's taller, it's thinner, it's not as thick a layer and creating that carpet effect. So then when you cut it down that low, the light gets in and the weeds grow because the weeds are already in the lawn. There's not a lot of time where you're bringing the weeds in because of your mower. Most of the weeds that come through in that situation are coming through because you've taken the good layer of protection off the top.
Yeah, the seeds are just sitting beneath the soil waiting for their opportunity.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to get in before you here. If you cut with a robotic mower, it's cutting daily.
Yes.
And if you look at a golf course where they cut daily.
That's right. Yep.
And a robotic mower can do similar, but I have not seen a robot mower that will cut as low as they do on a golf green.
Yep.
But there's a difference there as well in that the golf green's going to do a lot of chemical controls to make sure that that looks perfect.
Constantly.
Whereas if you're using a robotic mower, you're not going to go to the trouble of doing as much chemical control as a golf course will.
No.
So golf course, you might get down to 2 or 3 millimeters on a really fine cut, and typical cylinder cuts are going to be somewhere around 8 to 15 millimeters.
Yep.
With a robotic mower, 20, 25 millimeters of cut, and because it's cutting daily, it will grow a nice thick layer of green under 25 millimeters. I've got mine in my backyard. I've cut it down to 20 mil.
Yep. It'll be nice and tight, would it?
Oh, yeah. Very nice and very tight and really good quality. Yes. The soil underneath, when you take a core sample out, the soil looks really great. There's not a big layer of thatch. It's nice. It's very easy to work with.
Manageable,
and the daily cut frequency means that it's still a really healthy lawn. So if you wind the frequency back and you go, okay, I'm going to cut fortnightly, and then you get rain on the fortnight when you're due to go and cut the customer's lawn, and it ends up being 3 weeks, or if you're really rigid with your schedule, it ends up being 4 weeks before you touch it. And then you turn around and you cut it at less than 3 inches, you're doing damage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. I've only gone through that still with certain mates of mine and explaining you got to get on it more often. It's half the battle. Just mow often.
Yeah. So I'll refer to height of cut in inches because that's what most of the mowers represent, right? So a typical mower will go from 1.5 inches through to 5 inches in height of cut, particularly the American machines. In Australian language, that's talking from about 30 millimeters or 35 millimeters is where you're talking 1.5 inches through to 5 inches, which is probably somewhere around 140 millimeters high.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's 100 mils for 4 inches. So
yeah, so that's say 125 is going to be 5 inches, right?
Yeah.
We'll try and get it right. Yeah, so those are the variables that you work with. I love and I've told stories on the podcast. You might have heard the episodes where I've talked about customers that wanted me to just keep cutting lower and lower, and they were on fortnightly cuts, and they're like, "Oh, cut it lower." And I'm like, "No, you're not actually cutting the weeds out by cutting lower. You're just exposing your
causing more
turf to
problems.
damage, and more weeds grow."
Yep. Yeah, and
So
that's the thing. You got to educate as much as you can.
if you like what you're listening to in this episode, Dan the Mowing Mentor is on Instagram as the Mowing Mentor, and he loves helping people fine-tune their mowing business to be profitable and efficient. Speaking of profit and efficiency, my mate Prez Madley loves analysing business data, and he can help you work out KPI and systems that take you to the next level. Find him by emailing thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. Last but not least, I love helping you out, not just with the podcast, but I also like bringing a practical, hands-on approach to improving your business. Contact Gary Ashton on Facebook Messenger or email aussielawnsstars@icloud.com. Yeah, so 100%, I want customers' lawns where they're fortnightly to be cut taller than when I'm cutting daily.
Especially when you're mulching, it's no other way around it. You got no choice. If you're trying to cut at that 2-inch height, even it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not at fortnightly. You can do it if you want to go weekly, but that's a conversation you've got to have with your clients.
But fortnightly, I would typically aim for 2.5 to 3.5 inches, and I'd be aiming 2.5 to 3 inches predominantly with customers that are fortnightly cuts.
Yeah, 3 is the sweet spot, and that's just nice. Just holds out enough unless you get that torrential rain.
So you're talking about 75, 80 millimetre cut.
Correct, yes. So unless the clients don't want to go weekly, and that's a conversation I have, they're happy to keep it as is at fortnightly, then that's what we do. So the finish may not be as good as it can be because it is fortnightly. When I explain I'm doing mine every 2 days, it becomes pretty clear to them that, all right, 14 days later, we're going to have a lot of growth.
So we're actually almost on the same page there when we're talking 75 millimetres or 3 inches cut height is pretty good for most customers.
Yes, my own lawns I like to push to 4 inches, but
that's where we differ.
Yes, that's exactly where we would differ. I've got 3 dogs. 2 of them, one's a border collie cross Kelpie, one's a whippet cross Staffy.
Yeah,
and the Staffy cross whippet, she's getting a bit old and slowing down. But the border collie, I need to get him on some property because he's just running dog tracks everywhere. And if you have it thicker, it handles that a lot better.
I disagree.
Repair itself.
I couldn't disagree more. The 20 millimetre cut height with the robotic mower.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 dogs, so we're going to argue about this. We'll get into a shouting match if we need to.
That's all right. I'll send my bloke down. He can run on your lawn for a week and see how you go.
You know what Labradors are like? They are creatures
big
of
and
habit.
Boisterous.
So, and heavy. So he wears tracks in the lawn. Before I was cutting with a robotic mower, I was using the Honda, I'd use the Walker, I'd use the cylinder mower, the Morrison cylinder mower.
Yes, yep.
Right? Any of those cuts, and we're talking anything from fortnightly down to 3 times a week when I was using the cylinder mower, the dog tracks would wear in, they would kill the lawn off.
Yeah.
And typically I was cutting with the Ride-On or the Honda, I was cutting around that 2.5 inch mark.
Yep.
So not as high as you.
So the robot's benefiting that much.
The cylinder mower, I was cutting lower. And then the robot, when I went to the robot, down to 20 millimetres, and where the dog's been running, you can tell the dog's been running there, but the lawn is healthy.
Yeah.
It's so healthy there.
Repairing itself quickly.
Yeah. I used to know that coming through winter, those spots where the dogs run back and forth would take 3 months to recover after winter was over.
Yep.
This last winter didn't die off in those spots at all.
Yeah, nice. Now I'm very intrigued, and I've reached out to you recently in regards to it because that's the main reason I want to try it for the backyard.
Yeah.
I'll still keep the front lawn as thick as I can because there's an undesignated bus stop out there, and there's about 100 kids every day on and off, morning and afternoon. So as thick as I can go because with the foot traffic. And I like that look when you're coming home, and people call it the muffin top or whatever they want to call it, but I love that look. So
yeah, fair enough. So I think looking at robotic mowers, there's several factors you're going to need to consider when you look at getting a robotic mower, and one of those factors that you really don't know until you start using one is how they cope with different conditions.
Yes.
Because you're a human. When you push a mower or you jump on your stander and you're going around the yard, then you know how to handle different situations. A robot does not know how to handle those situations.
Yep. Burning tyre marks into the lawns and things like that when it's wet.
Some of them will, in fact, get stuck and dig ruts and make mud pies because they don't know how to get themselves out of a bog hole.
Yeah.
And other issues can be with some of them. If they turn on the same spot every time, then they create a dead patch in the grass.
Get the donuts happening.
Yep. But I think the biggest issues are going to be getting your cut height where you're happy and making sure the robot can handle that cut height well. But working on slopes. And the best thing to describe there, if you're using a zero turn or a stander on a slope, you know that you're going to lose traction if you're facing the wrong way once the slope gets to a certain steepness.
Yep.
Robots don't know that.
Yeah. They just keep sliding down the hill.
They typically will approach the slope facing forwards, right? So if they're going up a slope and then they hit a boundary, no problem at all. If they're going down a slope and they hit a boundary, then when they get to the boundary, they start reversing and changing direction. But if they're facing down a slope, when they go to reverse, they act like a zero-turn mower. They have no traction on their drive wheels.
Yep.
So they'll either spin, rip the grass up, or they will go over the border, and then they send you a notification saying, help me, I'm out of my area.
Yeah,
now,
fair enough.
You can get all-terrain tyres or better traction tyres, spikes, those sorts of things, so that they grip better on slopes, but that's still their weak point. And you'll see robot mowers that say they're capable of doing they use percentages more than degrees usually, but if they're talking percentages, the average robotic mower will say about 40 to 45% slope.
Yeah. Yep.
And percentage, because people mostly think in degrees when they're thinking slope, percentage means 100% is 45 degrees slope. So if you're traveling along a meter, then the fall is also 1 meter. That's 100%. If you travel along a meter and the fall is half a meter, that's 50%.
Yes. Yep.
So
so the percentage, and they've been a bit confusing, I found, though, when I was researching it. You know what our degrees are.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we're looking at our zero turns, and then they've gone to percentages, and you're like, okay, I've got to equate this to a degree now. But yeah, once you figure it out, it's all right. And you realise there are a few out there, a few options that have a higher cut height, better on the hills than others.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking with you, and just support is a big thing at the moment.
Yes.
Dealer support, and if anything goes wrong, trying to find parts, things like that is a big consideration, plus the price tag at the moment.
Yeah, so the bigger the brand name in robotics, the more support you're going to find. If they've got a big distributor backing them, then that's going to make a big difference. So there's a few brands. I won't get into dissing the brands, but there are a few brands that have been known to have some problems because they're trying to enter the market, but they haven't brought the level of support that the other brands have.
Yeah, and I don't mind throwing Husky under the bus with their boundary wire mowers. A few of them just running off course, slipping on hills. There's issues constantly like that. Once you get it down pat and you've got to adjust, obviously, the boundary wire, it's all right. But yeah, it's just a lot of teething issues at the moment, and we're going to find that for the next few years. But yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, I've heard numerous stories, and Husky gets thrown under the bus all the time for this, but it's because they have been prolific with robotic mowers.
There's so many of them, yeah.
Well, they were first to market, and they're the biggest company in robotic mowers.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, the dealer network has often not represented the robots very fairly. So they're like, yep, we'll install a robot for you, and not a very adequate explanation or assessment of the site. And that can create problems. And it happens across all the brands, but Husky's the most prolific. So they get the name.
They're looking for the sale, and they're looking to get it going. So that's the main thing. But yeah, the dealers and stuff not understanding, they just want to sell that product. The client's needs, yes, they might overpromise to that client, but they're making that sale, so they're happy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I know there's a number of stories I've heard of people getting a Husky robot, and it's been oversold, overpromised, and they're unhappy with it and they tell the dealer to take it back, get rid of it, and then they might go and try another robot, or they go off robots altogether.
Yeah, and that's a shame because, it's more knowing what it's capable of doing and understanding that, and the dealer should really know that. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
that happens with other brands. It's just that Husky's well known.
it just happens more often.
So I think looking in the future, there's going to be a big difference because a lot of brands now have robots available that don't need a wire in the ground.
Yes, and I think more so on the bigger scale, the robots I'm also intrigued with, the zero turns and standers and things like that can be on acreages. That's a huge market I can see benefiting.
There's two prominent players in the market at the moment. Wright have a tried and tested machine, the ZK Stander.
Yes, yep.
They have released a version of that is autonomous.
Yep.
And I believe we don't have them running around Australia at this point in time. But they're not a cheap machine, but then you're getting a lot of value from having it autonomous. The other one I had a bit of a play with about a month and a half ago was FJ Dynamics.
Okay, yep.
And that was a 42-inch machine, battery-powered machine, and it comes with a GPS beacon that you put on a tripod, and then you program the area that you want to mow and hop off the machine, and it goes and does the mowing for you.
Yeah, nice.
And unfortunately, at the time when I tried it, it wasn't really fit for going to market. I'm in contact with them. I noticed they're posting on LMCA this week even about trying to get more demos out there with through their dealer network and directly with contractors. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes now. I'm sure that FJ Dynamics is a massive company and they've done a lot of work with GPS on farm equipment, agricultural equipment.
Yep.
So if they get that right, and it's a 42-inch machine that can do, and I'm going to be reluctant to claim how many hours it can do because I saw 4 or 5 hours, and then I've seen more recently it's about 2 to 3 hours of work that they can do on one charge.
Okay. Yep.
But if they can do what they claim they can do, that means you or I could buy that machine for about $40,000 to $45,000.
Yep.
Set it up on as many residential yards as you want to do, or small acreages.
Yeah.
You take it with you in your trailer, you drive it off the trailer, you set your GPS beacon up, press go, and then you jump on the whippersnapper, the blower, and by the time you're done, the mowing's done, and away you go on to the next job.
Yeah. No, it was only that I was at a 10-acre property today, and it would have been perfect simply for the fact that the mower could be going. I could edge, spray, do whatever I've got to do on the whole property, hedge trim, garden. There's so many other things I do there, but I was just stuck on the mower for about 6 hours. So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of value in a machine that size, or the Wright, which is going to be bigger and more productive again. A lot of value in that because you can take it with you, set it up, do the mowing, go away, come back a week later or 2 weeks later, and off it goes again.
Yep.
There are a few inherent problems with that because, like I was talking about with the small robots, these things don't understand the difference between turning on a slope and turning on flat ground.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of the farming equipment, crops, things like that, is pretty square, straight runs. So
that's it.
The obstacles and moving parts, animals, kids, things like that. There's all considerations that the mowers are going to have to do rather than the farming equipment.
That's right. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes over time. And once we see a few contractors finding good use cases for these, we'll get more feedback on it.
Yeah, I think we'll get there with Tesla, Elon Musk bringing out them robots. They might be on the back of the mower and they can be the intelligent thing. I don't know. There's plenty going on the next 10 years, I think.
Look, even 12 months ago, I thought Elon Musk was really smart, really good, and doing a great job. And over the last 12 months, I've seen so many things that he's done a terrible job of implementing, and the criticisms against him are proving to be true. And I'm like, oh man, I had so much faith in him, and now I'm going, no, I would not buy that Cybertruck that's coming out. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
I think he's just trying a bit of everything, just having fun, I think is what he's doing these days.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, certainly the future with robotics is going to be interesting.
For sure. No, looking forward to it.
It will only get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, the biggest benefit of robotic mowers at the moment are the ones that live on one site permanently, and they just keep the grass looking like a golf course all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think residential yards, that's where it'll be at to begin with. And yeah, it'll just filter in bit by bit.
Even with commercial jobs, I think that's where they're at, because I've got several on a commercial contract, and it means that part of the lawn is always mowed.
Yeah, I've looked into that, and I think with the front yards, that's a big consideration. Being stolen, things like that, having it running out in the front yards in Australia, it's very, very different with our gates and fences.
Yes.
We've got our nature strips and things like that to consider. So if they run off course and get on the road, they could be causing traffic issues. And yeah, there's lots of considerations with that. So
yeah, well, look, the benefit now is that in those areas where if you had a wire in the ground and you've got a robot programmed on a schedule, getting it to do a roadside verge or somewhere where there's a risk of theft, there was an element of risk that you couldn't account for. You could have a GPS tracking and SIM card notifications, so you could find a stolen robot.
Yep.
And you could plaster the robot with security alarms, PIN codes, and various different things like Husqvarna's set up with.
Yeah.
Somebody's still going to be dumb enough to steal it and throw it in the lake.
Or kids just vandalising it even. There's just so many different factors.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to Husqvarna again very shortly about this, and the new models that they're coming out with are better. But it'd be interesting to hear from them again on that. At the moment, the thing that's interesting is when you've got a mower that doesn't have a wire in the ground and a flexible schedule, what you do is you program it with several different zones and you tell it to do the backyard routinely. And then when you're home and you lock your dogs up, you open the gate up and you say, go and do the zone outside.
Yeah. Yep. While you're home.
And as long as you make sure that zone gets done often enough, then it'll keep on top of it. And I've noticed this with grass growing ridiculously fast at the moment. If a robot is mowing less than daily on a particular area, so say 3 times a week, there's the risk there that the grass will grow too quick for it to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's nearly got to be daily, hasn't it?
Well, that's where they operate at their best, when they're cutting most of the grass every day.
Yeah. And what are the charge cycles like, Gary? Do you know how many charges would you get out of one?
That's going to vary.
Yeah.
So there's huge variables there in terms of how long it spends charging versus how long it spends mowing, what type of battery chemistry it's got in it, and the workload that it's got. So the best thing I can tell anybody looking at getting a robotic mower is buy something that's capable of doing way more than what you need it to do.
Yep. Yeah.
So
sure.
For instance, the difference in price between a robot that can do 2,000 square meters and 3,000 square meters is not massive.
Yeah.
It might be $500.
And it's worth it.
The fact that it can do 3,000 square meters and you're only asking it to do, say, 1,500 or 2,000 square meters.
Yep.
What it means is that battery life cycle is going to last twice as long because it's only working half as hard.
Yep.
So if you've got good battery chemistry in a robotic mower, and say it's lithium ferrous phosphate, I think is what it stands for, LiFePO.
Right, yep.
They claim 3 to 10,000 cycles on those batteries.
Yeah, okay.
So typically speaking, if you know that the robot's going to use, say, 3 or 4 cycles per day,
yep,
that's probably a robot that's working pretty hard.
Yep.
But if you reduce the area that it needs to do, so say you pick a robot that's capable of doing 5,000 square meters and you're asking it to do 1,500 square meters.
Yeah, well, that's similar to what I'm looking at, sort of
800
square meters out the back. It'll be very underworked.
It might only need to do 1 charge per day by comparison.
Yep.
So that machine might then last for 20 years, whereas if you're asking it to do 5,000 square meters per day and it's got obstacles in the road and fairly steep slopes, even though it's quite capable of doing 5,000 square meters in ideal conditions, once you throw obstacles and slopes in there, that reduces its capacity. It means it's working harder, which means that it's going to have to charge more frequently because and you know this with battery whippersnippers, right? If you're doing routine maintenance work,
Yes. Yep.
you might get 2 hours out of a husky whippersnipper, but if you turn around and you ask it to do 30 centimetre high grass, you might get 15 minutes out of it.
That's it. Yeah, it makes sense. Thanks for that.
So yeah, that's probably the best tip for a robotic mower is underwork it and it'll last forever.
Yep. Yeah, just go as big as you can afford.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Definitely. And give consideration to factors like slopes. If you need a mower that can handle bigger slopes, if it can handle more slope than you expect it to need, then it's going to be better.
That's better again, yeah, for sure.
And say it's on the limit. If you know that the slopes are going to be close to the maximum of that machine, see if you can put all-terrain tyres on it or spikes on the wheels so that it's got better traction, and then that will just help it to do a better job again.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So, Dan, I think we've been just over an hour at the moment talking about all manner of different things.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. So can we spend a bit of time talking about the mentoring that you do?
Yeah, mate, for sure. We'll shift gears. And I think the biggest thing too, the amount of lawns per day, getting back to that. Just doing that basic math. You've got so many lawns that you can do in a day, whatever you've got used at your disposal. You might have a push mower, but that 10 lawns is more than achievable, especially when you've got a tight run.
Yeah.
I'll just touch on that with the route density being in this town as opposed to, say, the Central Coast. Speaking with the blokes down there and girls, obviously, in the industry.
Yeah.
The travel, because of traffic lights, because of traffic alone. Visiting Queensland when we went up for the event, and I'm like, just the amount of traffic. And seeing the lawnmower guys in town trying to get from one job to another.
Yep.
That's a huge consideration. So I can understand when I'm in a small town and I'm just going bang, bang, bang on all these properties. Everything in this town's sort of 5 minutes from one end to the other, you know?
Yes.
And that's a huge factor when you're trying to achieve a certain number of lawns per day. But with that, if you can upgrade to a 30-inch mower, get a stand-on unit, whatever size that fits into your gates and your type of yards, all of that's a benefit. So what I just say, the biggest you can get on there, as long as it's safe to do so, it's not too wet, obviously, and you're ripping up lawns. I believe people could really benefit, clients, and obviously, if you're benefiting in your business and you're in business for a long period of time, then your clients are going to benefit because they want you to be in business for a long time. So a lot of people struggling to hit certain figures, it's just getting back to that basic math and really being hard on your radius, I guess, your service radius.
Can I add a couple of things there? I think what you're saying is really important for people to understand, Will. There's a couple of variables that will change there. So if you're in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne, you're in those city areas where you got traffic lights and all those sorts of things. One of the factors that will change for you is that you will probably end up charging more per job if you are having to get through more traffic to get to the job. The customers may push back against that. So if you're in Western Sydney, they're going to push back a lot harder than you're in the North Shore areas.
Yes.
But there's always variables. It's going to change. It's not going to be consistent. Some people in the North Shore are going to push back harder than people in Western Sydney and vice versa.
Yeah, but, and I think, sorry, you go.
The other thing that's really relevant there, you're talking the 10 lawns a day, and I agree with you. That's really achievable if you've got good route density. My area, when I started mowing, there were no traffic lights, and now there's half a dozen traffic lights, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, sure does.
But the other thing that makes a big difference in my area when I started, the average job, I mentioned before, 800 square meters through to an acre. And now you could create a lawn run. If I go across the road from my street into this new subdivision that's got halfway through finishing and it's going to have about 5,000 homes there, every lawn is 15-minute job. Yep. Whereas 800 square meters plus, every lawn is 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yes.
So across Australia, there's going to be huge variables in terms of the amount of time it takes to do a job. And if you're doing a commercial job like me at the moment, I'm on site all the time, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, one site.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're all considerations, and that time factor per job. And that, again, comes down to ability as well as equipment, I guess, experience, knowing your patterns, your edging pattern. You want to be obviously flinging the grass in towards the lawn, where you're going to be sucking it up, not spraying things out, where you got to do extra blowing and all the basics.
Can I interrupt you on that one again?
Yeah, that's all right.
I want to hear all your advice, but the pattern that you have with mulching will be different to somebody who's catching.
Can be, yes.
For me, when I was doing residential jobs only,
yep,
I would go into a new job, mow, edge, blow.
Yep.
If it was a job I knew well, edge, blow, mow, blow.
Yeah, okay.
So there's variables there, right? And if you're catching, then invariably it's vertical edges first, flat edges, blow, catch, blow, and maybe even catch again. But you get the idea, right? So when you're catching, you're deliberately making sure all your clippings go back on top of the lawn where you're catching so that you get a perfect finish.
Yes.
When you're mulching, you still essentially want the same thing, but the pattern you choose might be different and the efficiency of the job is going to be hugely different.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, no, and that's all a big consideration. Again, everyone has their own ways of doing everything. Finding what works for you. I'm left-handed, so everything I do is backwards anyway.
Me too.
Yeah, so
I'll have to visit the chiropractor or the physio to get that back straightened up after you're walking around backwards because you're left-handed.
Yeah, no, that's right. My wife, luckily, she's got magic hands like that for me, so that helps.
Awesome.
Definitely needed. We could touch on that too. Probably looking after yourself. Whether that be physically or electrolytes. Heard you touch on that on your last podcast, and I use certain ones to provide all the nutrients that I need, extra amino acids, all these type of things, just to keep me going throughout the day. Because at the end of the day, I still enjoy a beer, but you need to replace all that you've lost.
Do you want to name drop?
Enjoy that beer?
And I'm not saying name drop the beer, but by all means do that as well. But the particular electrolytes that you recommend?
Yeah, no, it's bulk nutrients I use.
Okay.
And it's 101 is what it is. It's a berry flavoured powder.
Yeah, okay.
You don't need too much of it.
The one I've found really good is it's called Hammer Nutrition, and Hammer Nutrition electrolytes, they avoid including sugar in there. So the minimal sugar, it's more about getting the electrolytes right balance. And I've found them to be really good too. So there's two brands that people can look up. If you go and buy a Gatorade from the servo,
full of sugar.
the quantity of electrolytes in there is almost non-existent. I mean, they do have something useful in there, but the sugar overrides it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Clever marketing on the sports fields, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're both on the same side with that conspiracy.
Yes. There's plenty when you get looking.
Yeah. So the other thing, while you're talking about nutrition, I love KFC. I can't eat it anymore because I've got celiac disease, but it's very commonplace for a lawn contractor to stop in at the servo or KFC, grab a meat pie or a KFC or Macca's or something like that while you're out on the job. And I'm not judging anyone who does that. I've done it lots of times myself.
Yep.
It makes me a little bit cranky when I see people getting shot down in flames for talking about eating healthy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's plumbing, obviously. It's not the healthiest, any trade really. When you're in that environment, you got to get a meat pie. You got to get whatever you can get.
And when you're on the go trying to get your route density great, meat pie is great for your route density.
That's it. But no, I pack my own lunch. I'm lucky in that regard too. My wife makes my sandwiches, freezes those, so they're prepped for every week.
Nice.
Two big sangers, whatever I want to put on there, turkey, usually meat, roast beef. Yeah, and then fruit. I'm just a bit of a fruit ninja. Anything fruit, berries.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, rock fruit and plenty of bananas.
I hate berries. Anything fruit-wise where you actually eat the seeds, it's just no good because they grow in your belly.
Yeah, that's what our kids thought recently.
Honestly, my brother told me that when I was young, and it's put me off eating any sort of fruit like that. But anyway, we'll move on from that. I'm 46 now. I can grow up, right?
You can move past that one. I think you're pretty safe.
But I still can't because I can't handle berries. But the important thing is, if you're on the road and you don't want to be getting a meat pie and you don't want to be getting KFC, of course we all do want it, but if you carry some fresh fruit and you carry some mixed nuts, those
Yeah.
things are great for getting energy and
Yep.
protein levels. And of course, you can always go for something like a Cliff Bar or some sort of energy bar, protein bar. All those sorts of things are going to achieve something similar,
Yep.
but have a close look at what you're getting and make sure it's not just a big sugar fest.
Yeah, and especially with the profit margins, it's another expense in my eyes. You're spending money on food, coffees,
Yes.
whatever, and it all adds up at the end of the week. You'd be surprised what that adds up to. So,
Mind you, if you go and buy mixed nuts, you can spend $200 on nuts
yeah,
very quickly.
yeah, pistachios like $14 a kilo or something.
But by comparison to buying a Cliff Bar, if you look at the amount of nutrition you're getting from buying nuts instead of buying bars, it's better value overall and your better health.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's definitely something to it. I've worked with a lot of blokes that didn't do it, and it shows at the end of the day. They've got headaches and they're completely depleted, exhausted, and I'm still good to go and play with my kids and go for a swim or do whatever else I want to do.
Yep. Another interesting one as far as nutrition goes is caffeine. And I've grown up in an environment where caffeine's a dirty word. Don't have any coffee, don't have any Coca-Cola. And I've heard varying mixed reports on whether caffeine is good for you or bad for you, whether it has actual scientific evidence to support one way or the other. And I'm going to say the jury's still out. I'm not judging anybody for it, but it's something that will come up. Caffeine will initially, so the science on it, caffeine will actually open your blood vessels a little bit, helps your blood to flow a bit more freely. But there's potentially some addictive side effects to that. And because it helps the blood to flow more freely, and you get the ups and downs with the caffeine as you come off the caffeine effect, a lot of people have issues with headaches as a result of it as well.
Yes, yeah, and I've found I've mentioned to you recently about the heart condition, so I can't have any caffeine or anything like that. I can, and it's not major. It's just the palpitations would obviously happen a lot more regularly if I did.
I think anybody with heart conditions, the doctors will often warn them about using caffeine and recommend that they minimise it.
Any stimulants. Since 15, I was 15, I've played first grade soccer, done plenty of things physically. And my heart's obviously strong. But if I was to start doing those type of things daily, it would add up.
It would certainly take its toll.
Yeah, especially when I get a bit older.
That's been an interesting sidebar. Going back to your business mentoring, and I'm sure that the nutritional side of it is definitely part of it, right? Making sure people understand that.
Yep. No, I wanted to just put that in there because it is a huge factor. But no, getting back to the mentoring.
So we talked route density, good nutrition. I'm guessing you talk to people, counsel them on knowing their value, knowing their numbers, as the Americans
so obviously, as we know, every area is slightly different. But the lower socio-economic areas, I guess we find ourselves in different pockets. Every town has got it. But every town has also got very lucrative clients, I guess you could put it.
Yes.
And like whether or not they're flashy with their money, it's irrelevant. They've got it there and they're looking to just get a good service provided. And you can set yourself apart with knowledge, with quality of work, with equipment. There's so many different avenues you can go that way. But I think getting to know what you actually require week to week in your business, whether or not you have a family or you're just starting out, knowing your expenses and overheads, whether you've got all these credit cards and loans on cars or whatever it might be. A lot of people buy televisions and things like that on lay-by, and it's all each to their own, but it's all an expense. So when you factor all of that in, what do you need to make per day, per week, per year? You start to figure that out real quick, especially if you've done your figures working for someone else. You realize you don't actually require a great deal more. Even though you do in a way, you don't. It's like when you're starting out and you're not claiming BAS, you've got a bit of leeway there with your GST figures. So getting your figures to where you want them, you can start to pick and choose. If you've got the luxury of having a partner that works, then you've got that extra little bit of kitty coming in. If you have the skills to do certain jobs like I did when I was a handyman, when I first started, you can build it up pretty quickly, just the funds to do what you actually want to do.
So Couple of things there.
Yep.
Knowing what you're worth versus knowing what you need. That changes the way you look at it,
It
because
does.
you can sit there and go, you know what, I'm worth $100 an hour. But if
Yeah.
you do the maths and you go, well, what I need is
Yep.
$1,000 a week,
Yep.
the pressure's off.
That's right. And it's more, you can work up to them figures. And I certainly didn't start at 100 plus an hour.
Vice versa. If you're plumbing,
Yep.
and plumbing versus lawn mowing is really good comparison here because you know it,
Yes.
right? If you're plumbing in the middle of North Shore in Sydney and then you go plumbing at Penrith,
Yep.
are you going to charge the lower socioeconomic areas nothing because they can't afford a plumber? Or do
No,
you say,
that's
well,
right.
they still need a plumber and a plumber is still worth money?
Yep. And it might be slightly less, I don't know, but certain jobs I know definitely in those areas, like certain jobs, it's ridiculous what you can get.
Look, there's a lot of trades that will put a price premium on the affluent.
Yep.
A lot of trades will do it. But
Yep.
also you'll get vice versa. You'll get people who, say a plumber, who normally would charge a premium for doing commercial work over residential work, right? So you might say a plumber has a call-out fee of $150 for a residential job. It's a commercial job. No, that call-out fee is $500,
Yeah.
right? But vice versa, a plumber who's doing only commercial work, and because he's got a consistent lineup of commercial work,
Yeah.
$80 an hour
Yeah. Yep.
plus GST.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's all he needs.
And again, based off overheads, he might own his house. Like it's just, it's all relevant to that, and that's why it's so different. But getting off the hourly figures, I try and steer people away from it as much as I can. And
I like to push people towards looking at a combination between the hourly, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the annual turnover. So if you need $100,000 a year, you can break that down into an hourly rate or a weekly rate or a daily rate. If you need $2,000 a week, you can work it out and you can scale it.
That's right. And the set pricing, especially with lawns, is a huge factor.
Yes.
So the quicker you can get at that lawn, providing the same finish, the same quality, then you're skyrocketing what you once were capable of doing. That's a huge factor.
Something that comes up there, I'm interested in your perspective on this.
Yep.
I'm 46 years old. I'm guessing I'm a couple of years older than you.
Yeah, mate, I'm 33, going on 34.
There you go. So 13 years difference.
Yep.
Maybe 12 and a half.
Don't let me baby face fool you if you've still got me on the screen there.
Yeah, your face is still on the screen, but it's glitched.
Yeah, no, I've got the same thing. It's all good.
But the age difference is not that massive.
Yep.
And the new Ego commercial range of tools has been making waves in Australia over the last few months. It's great to see a lot of contractors buying the STX 4500 dedicated Bipper Dipper, and all reports are positive. I've seen users ranging from lightweight use with the backpack link through to running 7.5 amp hour batteries on the tool, and my run with the 10 amp hour battery on the tool for smashing the overgrown stuff. Get the power you need for demanding jobs. The commercial tools are designed to work as hard as you do, all day, every day. The difference between you and I is that at 46 years of age, I don't want to push myself as hard as I can to make more money in the day. I want to know that I'm making the right amount of money and that I'm going to be sustainable for the next 20 years, because I'm 46. In 20 years' time, I'll be 66. And at this current point in time, 66 year of age retirement is actually not really out there. It's pretty average.
Yeah.
Most people are looking between 65 and 70 years of age for retirement.
Yes. Yeah, no, I hear you there, definitely.
So our industry, you need to make sure that you are physically sustainable as well as financially sustainable.
Yeah, and that's where that's where getting the bigger mowers comes in, getting the most efficient equipment, using things to your advantage like mulch practices in your business, because picking up a catcher, the weight of certain catchers and things like that, it's all backbreaking type stuff, and it's already backbreaking enough. So if you can make it even easier on yourself and provide benefit to the lawn at the same time, then it's a win-win.
Yeah. Now, that's an interesting place to take this. I'm curious if you've got any more mentoring recommendations, but you've got a lot of experience with a wide variety of equipment too.
Yes. Yep.
And we should come to that once we finish talking about mentoring. I've started doing what we call tech talk, where I ask people specific questions about their rig, their truck, their trailer, their mowers, all that sort of stuff.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that's hugely valuable because you've got that wide experience with different mowers.
Yeah, no.
So,
Well, what bleeds into that, it's sort of the equipment I'm recommending now is like a single cab ute
yeah,
rather than the trailer setup. If you can get a single cab ute with a ramp setup,
yeah,
whether that's custom built or just portable ones at the moment,
yeah, okay.
custom would be ideal. But yeah, if I and when I start to push for franchisees in the future, that's what I'll be looking to implement. Simply,
Have you seen Martin from Mowing and Growing, the single cab ute setup that he's done?
yeah, I actually saw it on YouTube not that long ago. After you, was it yourself that interviewed him?
Yeah,
think
I
it
did
was,
it.
yeah.
Did his interview about a month ago now.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen his stuff for a while, and I thought I'll just chuck on YouTube and see what he's up to. And yeah, noticed he had that set up, and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and he's borrowed that from an American setup, but I should have actually asked him when I did the interview with him about where he got that built or whether he did it
Yeah,
himself, what he went to do.
yeah, I think there's a few places that do it, not many, but yeah, I've looked into it, and obviously a lot of our inspiration does come from America because they've got
Yeah.
things a lot quicker, sooner than we've got them.
So for people listening, a quick description of Martin's ute is where he's got that single cab ute, but he's got a ramp system that is built onto the back of the tray. So it looks kind of like a beaver tail truck in the
Yeah, little
sense
duck
that,
bill on the back.
yeah. So when he lowers the ramp, the part of the tray itself actually changes angle. So it makes it much easier to get a zero turn on and off the back of a single cab ute because
Correct. Yep.
let's face it, if you're loading and unloading a zero turn alpha trailer, you're probably less than a metre high. You're probably closer to 500 mil, half a metre off the
Yes.
ground from your trailer to the ground level, which means your ramp angle's pretty easy to manage.
Pretty safe.
If you're
Yep.
talking the back of a single cab ute, that's going to be around 1 metre high, so double the height of a trailer.
That's right. Yep.
So that ramp angle on a single cab ute, usually people are going to go off the back of the ute. Some people I've seen build ramps go off the side of the ute because then you often get the gutter curb height, which helps a little bit.
Yes.
But either which way, you've got to address that if you're building a single cab ute. And that's what Martin's done with the beaver tail style finish that he's got on the back of his ute.
Yeah, and I think for even two-man crews, that setup would be perfect. You can still run a zero turn and push mower on the back, if not two.
Yeah.
And
Now,
yeah,
a lot of people are going to struggle with that setup because their work vehicle is their family vehicle.
yes, and that's a consideration. I think working up towards it is obviously you start with the trailer if that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
But if that is, if you've got the ability and the funds to get that set up, that's what I'd recommend. Just because I've had the truck now and it's so efficient,
Yeah.
I think incorporating that to a single cab makes sense, especially for residential runs, and you're not taking away too much green waste.
Well, the other factor there is if you're using a family vehicle for your work vehicle,
Yep.
and that means you're towing a trailer, or even if you've got a dual cab ute and you're not towing a trailer and that's your family vehicle, what happens is that you're typically going to have a more expensive vehicle as your work vehicle. It's going to rack up a lot of kilometres, which means your family vehicle is going to need turning over more frequently.
Yep.
And if you can afford to separate the two, you can probably afford to buy a work vehicle that's a single cab ute secondhand for $10,000 and
Correct.
it will be reasonably decent.
Yep.
And if you're running a business doing lawn mowing and you can't afford a $10,000 vehicle that's dedicated to your business,
Yeah.
then you're definitely on the lifestyle side of things rather than the high business achiever. Not judging.
Yeah.
So not everyone's going to go for a separate vehicle for business. I haven't. At most of my business, I have had a vehicle that works as a family vehicle as well as a business vehicle.
Yep.
Yeah, it's relatively cost effective to go for a single cab ute dedicated for work. It's not going to fit the kids and the wife in it on the weekend.
Yeah, and that's it. It's all risk factor, and everyone's got to decide that for themselves. But I think biting the bullet with certain things can really propel you forward quicker. And I've spoken to you about the risks with what I've sort of done to start this business. I've mentioned it in the notes anyway that I sort of had, just because of want to touch on so many topics. We could be here for 5 hours, but
Yeah, and we've only been going for an hour and a half, so we've still got 3.5 hours to go.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's all right.
so shall we mention some of those briefly, and then we'll go back to talking more about equipment?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you've struggled with some health issues through most of your life.
yeah. Well, just more the heart condition's not really a struggle. It's more just I know about it,
Yeah.
And there's certain things that I just implemented to not have to do that everyone else at the time, certain ages, sort of 17, 18, 19, and all the boys doing boys things. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't touch any of that stuff and don't do any of that. And yeah,
Yeah.
health and fitness. I was a personal trainer before I was a plumber too. So
Okay.
yeah, I've done a fair bit in the health space and yeah, continue to do that. But no, yeah, the equipment, everything else. I'm just trying to remember what I was talking about now, Gary.
Yeah, so we were sort of jumping from mentoring over to talking specifically about some equipment, and I think they're both relevant to the same topic, aren't they? In terms
Yeah,
of
they go
talking
hand
about,
in hand, and yeah, I think if you can afford, everyone's circumstances are going to be different, but if you can afford to get something that's going to benefit you in the long run, then I say do it.
yeah, and often when you're talking about spending $10,000 on a ute or $20,000 on a zero turn or $3,500 on a push mower instead of $500 on a push mower, whatever it might be,
Yes.
the cost of those things might seem insurmountable. Like $10,000 for a vehicle that's dedicated to work, and then you got to pay for extra rego and extra
Yeah.
tires and all those sorts of things. It seems insurmountable. Looking at a zero turn that's worth $20,000 plus instead of one that's worth $6,000, it seems insurmountable. The difference is all of those three items that I've just mentioned will improve your productivity. And if you can improve your productivity, you might change your turnover from $60,000 to $150,000 just by having better productivity. It allows you to take on more work. Well, that
Yes.
makes it easier for you to put on an employee as well. It
Yep.
makes it a lot easier for you to grow your business.
And even with tax, it helps just having that one vehicle to claim solely 100% on, rather than if you're using it for family, they're going to question how much are you actually using it in your business.
Yep, definitely.
And then the servicing, everything's a percentage. So everything that if you can have a dedicated business vehicle or tool, whatever it is, it's all 100% tax deductible. It's a lot easier that way, especially once you start growing and you're dealing with BAS and expensive tax bills and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was having a chat to my accountant last week about doing logbooks of all my vehicles.
Yes, yep.
And it makes massive difference if you can say every trip I did was for work.
Yeah, and I think Google Maps, I've noticed, tracking everything and everywhere we go these days. So without actually keeping a logbook, you can pretty much point to that now if you had ever had to go through an auditing process.
Yeah.
That shows exactly the address you go to. You've got in your books that address, and yeah, it all lines up.
Yep. The other thing you can do relatively cheap these days is have a GPS tracking device on your vehicle.
Yeah, technology has made it a lot easier these days, that's for sure.
Yeah, and most of those GPS tracking devices, the one I've trialed the last 12 months, it will give you all a breakdown of servicing costs and all those sorts of things because it'll tell you how many kilometres you've done, so it can then send you a notification to say, oh, you're due for a service.
Yeah.
And can tell you who's
Very
driving
handy.
your vehicle if you want to set it up so that it's got driver login, all that sort of thing.
Yep.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools we can use to make ourselves more efficient these days.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So, are there any other big mentoring tips that you want to bring up at the moment?
Oh, there'll be plenty, mate. That's why I wrote all them notes down, because I've just been through sort of so many people, different stories, but very similar stories as well.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's once you start talking to somebody about what they're doing, it's easy to go, oh, you know what? Have you tried doing this?
That's right.
Have you tried doing all of your commercial jobs on one day and doing your residential jobs on another day? Or tried, sell a couple of jobs off that are a little bit further out of your way and then find some more customers that are all in the same area. So Monday, you're only traveling 10 kilometres for the whole day instead of traveling 200 kilometres.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit of a slow burn. So I set it up as a week A, week B system roster.
Yeah,
You got your residential week, you got your acreage commercial week, sort of the bulk of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
And then in that regard, everyone can it's a slow burn for everyone starting, but you can start to set it up and go, okay, well, that person's close to there. And because when you're going through and you're advertising in Facebook groups, it's not so much targeted to a certain area all the time, even though you can.
Yeah.
But you're getting people randomly, and I'm lucky in that regard in this town that everyone's within cooee of one another,
Yeah.
But other places, you've got to have that consideration and really look at your run and make it as efficient as possible, because no matter how quick you are on the machines, you've got to be there instead of having windshield time driving to a job, going from one end of town to the other or wherever that may be. It all adds up.
Yep. Now, I know for me that I'm going to be quicker than any employee.
Yes. Yep.
Doesn't matter what you do, you've got to allow for the fact that an employee's not going to be as efficient as you are. But because I'm focused on being quick, there's been numerous times where I've hit something with my mower.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I could tell you about that one.
Yeah, so you got some stories there?
Yeah, no, Husky 54-inch stand-on unit. When the stand-ons were first coming out, I just had everything Husky, so it just made sense to go with them. I read the bad reviews online overseas, knew what I was in for, but thought, oh no, I'll try and make it work. It was still relatively affordable back then.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was on an acreage property point in time a couple of years back, and there was leaf litter everywhere. And I've mowed it a million times before, but I was mowing it just a little bit shorter, trying to just mince up the leaves that little bit more and really side discharge them away.
Yeah.
There was this tree stump, maybe 100 mil round. It wasn't massive, but it was sticking up just enough that it's caught the deck. And I've just done, do you call it a stopey or a stoppy with a motorbike, where you do a frontwards wheelie?
Yeah, stoppy or stoppy is probably the best word for it.
Yeah, so it did that like a frontwards wheelie, and I've just folded in half like a ballerina, just doing a little pose. Felt like Woody off Toy Story. I was just ragdolled, and I was just thought, oh well, that loosened up the hips, and I'll be right now.
Yeah, I think most of us have got stories similar to that. We've been mowing, focused on trying to get through a job quickly and miss that vital sign.
Yeah,
I know there's a stump there somewhere.
Yeah, and it was more like it was there, but I was always mowing that little bit taller, and it must have cleared it every time. And bit of rain, bit of washout, and it just dipped in enough, and that was it.
Yeah, it's surprising how much difference a bit of rain or washout, those sorts of things can make. I've noticed with the robotic mowers.
Yep.
That you set them and then you go away, and because they've got a fairly light footprint, the terrain actually changes considerably to what it was when you were doing it with a ride-on mower.
Yes. Yep.
But one of the things that I've seen change with a robotic mower is when they've got the wire in the ground, the wire will move and tree roots grow over time, and so a wire that was hidden can get pushed up to the surface because a tree root's growing.
Yes. Yep.
So you can imagine that sort of thing. If the ground's soft and you're using a zero-turn mower and the tree roots have been growing over time, eventually you're going to hit it where the ground's really soft that day and the tree root's just a little bit bigger than it used to be. And then all of a sudden you've got that happen with exactly what happened to you.
Yeah, no, I'll give it to the Husky. It held up. It didn't break. Nothing broke on it. So as much as things break on that machine, nothing broke that time. So
yeah, so the Husky standard and the 54-inch, I actually looked at buying one off Tom Benson before I went to the right machines, and it looks like a really decent machine for the price point. Incredibly good value. Yeah,
no, great specs, but unfortunately the side discharge chute, unless they've made that wider, I ended up grinding mine wider.
Okay.
That was too narrow, so especially when you were side throwing in the wet, it was just clogging up too quick.
See, just leave the mulch plug in and deal with it.
There are certain properties, just even that, it was busting belts and pulleys, and so everything got upgraded as the best belts I could find. Upgraded everything on it, the pulleys, just beefed everything up I could, and even as it is, it's down at Mum and Dad's place now, just getting used there, so it's still running, getting some oil through it, but I don't use it anymore.
Yeah, even those of us who do mulch every job, you still find there's plenty of times where the grass is too long and you need to side discharge, and if it's not going to handle it.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I'm missing the 30-inch in that regard lately. Because I've only got the 21-inch on the back of the truck. It's a dedicated mulcher, and the 30-inch Skag side through for me perfectly, and I could mulch after that.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, when it was overgrown, it was so handy. It just ripped through anything, that machine.
Yeah, so it's a beast.
It is, yeah. It's all in all, I'd give it 7 out of 10, I guess. So I've got my gripes with certain things. Nothing's ever perfect.
Yeah.
But as far as for my business now too, it just doesn't suit the majority of what I'm doing. Stand-ons and the 21-inch typically gets me out of trouble.
Yeah, fair enough. And I know a lot of people buy a 32-inch stand-on and then they go up for sale shortly after. And it's like, okay, there was definitely a bit of a fad there where everybody wanted a 32-inch machine. And then some people have realized 32-inch isn't perfect for their business. And it's not a reflection on the machines being terrible.
No.
I think 32-inch machines, particularly a couple of the brands that are out there, they've got really solid machines that have helped people be hugely productive on those residential properties. But they're simply not going to suit everyone. I would never buy a 32-inch machine for what I do. I want bigger.
Yeah, no doubt.
Bigger mowers.
Yeah, 36-inch stander I've got doesn't, like, I would rather have a 30-inch mower in some cases than even the 36.
Yeah.
Just for residential properties. But yeah, it's horses for courses with everything, and it's what suits your business at the end of the day.
Yeah, so you've used quite a few different brands of machines and you've got some preferences?
Yeah, I do, definitely. I'm a Skag boy.
Yeah.
As much as...
I'll try not to hold that against you. I think they're great machines.
Yeah, no, they've done everything perfect for me, and especially with what I do. 52-inch stander gets on 80% of my residential properties.
That's decent.
At least the front yards.
That's massively productive on a residential property when you can use a 52-inch. And I'm guessing mulch plug?
Yeah, a lot of the time, it's not a mulch plug, it's just the side flap. I've got custom made up and, drop that down. But typically the height I'm cutting, and it's more than fine what's getting left.
And how do you find the cut quality with the deck on that? Because I think most people that use the Skags are side discharging, or if they've got a smaller Skag, they're catching with the Catch Pro.
Yeah, I think, again, the cut height for me plays a huge factor. If you're trying to cut too low and you're mulching, you're going to get them wispy weeds sometimes want to pop back up and things like that.
Okay.
Whereas because of the cut height, I don't have typically that many weeds in my lawns because the turf's crowding out all the weeds,
Yeah, so because you're cutting up above 3 inches on pretty much everything you do.
Yeah, just about, especially this time of year. Over winter, and I do a bit of a reset every season, get everything down again and start again.
Yeah. See, there's a few spots where I'm using the standards at the moment where I'm cutting around 2 or even 1.5 inches.
Yep.
And I think that's where the Skag would be pushed to its limits with cutting down those lower cut heights.
Yes, correct. It's again, it suits me to a T, but it wouldn't suit everyone, that's for sure.
So you're sitting up around the 3 inch, 3.5 inch mark?
Yes, yeah, typically 3. That's my sweet spot. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what's you've got the Skag, that's your favourite machine.
Yep.
And even the Skag 30-inch, you're saying, is one of your favourite machines?
Yeah, it was when I had the trailer. Not so much now I've got the truck, because it just means setting up another ramp and, again, efficiencies. I don't really require it when the 52 and the 21-inch mulcher gets it done.
So what are the other ride-on mowers that you've used recently?
MZ 52 Husky.
Yeah.
I had that for a while. That was, honestly, that's why I went to standard, because I never had a drama with that MZ. It was not a fully commercial. That's the mid-range.
Yeah.
And it never broke, never snapped the belt. And I was taking it through 5 feet high grass and mulching, because it had a dedicated mulch kit on it.
Yeah, okay.
And it was, I used it as slasher. I used it as everything, and it was fine.
So it was a 52 and your stander was a 54?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Slightly
what's the horsepower comparison on those? Because I think those Husky standards, the horsepower is a little bit on the low side with them. Is that right?
Yeah, I think maybe from memory 24.5 horsepower.
And how'd that compare with the MZ?
Yeah, it was under. The MZ might have been 27.
Yeah, which is decent. I think 27's fairly decent for something that's less than a 60-inch machine.
Yeah, it might have been 28 actually. Now that's coming back to me. Yeah. No, it was pretty good. And Briggs and Stratton, it was decent.
And the Husky decks are pretty good for mulching. They've got a fairly deep deck that mulches pretty nicely.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I was kind of disappointed actually in the stander. I tried and persisted, but I was like, nah, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and get the Skags.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just downtime fix-ups, and then a lot of it I can fix myself, but the ones I couldn't, and it was under warranty, I thought, well, it's going back, but then it was just delayed, and not good for business.
So have you had any others ride-on mowers recently that are worth mentioning?
Oh, no, I will mention the 32 time cutter, only because it was a great entry level, and it did leave a really great finish.
Yep.
It's an honourable mention for that one, because it's a good little starter.
32 time cutter, single, are they double blade, aren't they?
No, it was a single big bar blade. It was like a samurai sword.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. I was wondering, I was trying to picture that machine. I was like, is it a single or a double? It's a single.
Yeah, so not great if you hit something hard, but it's didn't go through any crap properties, so it was all right in that regard.
So if you're using it for regular maintenance, does a good job.
Decent. It wasn't great on hills. You'd slip off the slightest of hill, but if it was a flattish yard, it was fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so decent. Was good for your business.
Yeah, no, to start, and then it came with the trailer I bought at the time.
Okay.
So it was just sort of thrown in.
Yeah, nice. And I know you've had quite a few different walk behind or self-propelled machines as well.
Yeah, I've gone through a fair few trying to get the best perfect mulch machine I could find. Honda HRX is probably my second best I've got at the moment.
Now, the HRX is nothing like the HRU.
No, completely different. It's a premium domestic unit, but contractors use it. It's got the 4-point height adjustment.
Yep.
And mulching capabilities, depending on the grass type, they're almost like for like, but it does have the 200cc engine, which when you trick it up a little bit, it really has a lot of power.
And they've got a bar blade, or is it 2 bar blades that are overlapping?
Yeah, 2 that are overlapping, so you get the high and low cut.
Yeah, so they sit on top of each other, because obviously it's not like a 32-inch with 2 blades or a 42-inch machine with 2 blades that are on belts. It's
just the one solid bar blade.
Yep, straight attached to the shaft of the motor, and one lifts, one's flat, I think.
Yeah, slightly curved. They're both slightly curved, and they taper upwards. So having that in mulching mowers, I'll mention that too. Huskies do it well, and the Skag 30 do it well. The way they design the blade, it sort of almost is a hillside, and it'll go flat and ramp up.
Yeah.
And have a little kick on it and a little wing on it.
So not a high lift, but certainly just gives it a little kick up.
Yeah, and just enough, especially on the 30. They're just perfect for mulching in that design of blade.
Yep. I know a lot of mowers go to a gator blade. I think the Ego that I've got, 30. The Select Cut's got a gator blade option. A lot of machines like that got gator blades, and I often find gator blades do a better job than the low lift blades. Yes,
the Toro 30 had a great mulching from factory, great mulching blades from factory.
Yeah.
And that was another one I've had and trialled, and it was good until you had employees that would bump it into things and break things on it. But it goes through belts, as everyone, if you use it, but if you know how to swap them out, it's not a major thing.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tight to get in there, but not major.
Seen a lot of people talk about those machines and talk about keeping on top of your belts and pulleys.
Yeah, and you can upgrade the pulleys to the Turf Master. Yep. So you just beef everything up, and it's good. It's a great unit.
Yeah.
The personal pace is perfect. I really enjoy using that mower.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So very productive.
Yeah, and that was a game changer. Again, even compared to the 32 time cutter, it was just easier grabbing the 30.
Yeah, for sure.
Quicker and easier, lighter, more manoeuvrable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you played around with any battery mowers?
Only through clients, whoever's got them, whether they're Husky, Ego. They're about the only two. I've seen great reviews on the Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And I've looked at it, but at the end of the day, I've spoken to guys too, and the amount of work that I get through, and it's another battery to carry.
Yep, fair enough.
Gone there in that regard yet.
I've heard some really good things about Milwaukee too, but I think it's the more recent mower they've put out that's the one that gets really good reviews.
Okay, yep.
I think the latest one, it's probably been out 6 months by now.
Yep.
But looking at Milwaukee, I think that's one of the ones that I've noticed. rates really well.
Yeah, one of the front runners.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So you go into battery with whippersnippers or hedge trimmers,
Yeah, no,
blowers?
Husqvarna. Yep, Husqvarna is the main one, the multi tool.
Yeah, okay.
So I carry that on the truck now as pretty much a dedicated hedge trimmer.
So
Only
that'd be the
because
325.
yes, yep, yeah, and it goes all right, but it does chew the battery more than a dedicated hedge trimmer does.
Yeah, I've
Just
found
a
the same
different
thing.
setup. Yeah,
I haven't used the 325 for hedge trimming. I've used it for whippersnipping, blade edging.
yeah, and it definitely chews it doing that stuff.
Yeah. So compared to their 520 whippersnipper, the 520 gets around 2 hours runtime out of a BLI 300 battery, whereas the 325 multi with the whippersnipper head on it, I think you're talking about 40 minutes, maybe 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the dedicated hedger, it's that 2.5 hour figure. Even it's sort of depending on the hedge. I've been 2 days worth at acreage properties.
Yeah.
And the biggest, that 300 series battery, and it's just the one charge.
Yep.
And it's going all day for both them days, and it lasted. Just light maintaining trimming.
Yeah. I've done some big days hedge trimming with the Husky dedicated pole hedger,
Yep.
the short pole, and I was getting about 4 to 5 hours on one BLI 300.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So it's pretty good going. That
Yeah.
hedge trimmer is getting old now. I think it's about 4 years old and it's no longer functioning properly. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I've got two of them.
it's done a lot of hours.
Yeah. Yeah. The motor in them, sort of the wires, everything just burns out a bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it seems like at the moment. When you try and use it,
Yep.
it'll cut leaves, but if it's cutting anything thicker than a leaf, it very quickly overloads.
Shorts out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's seen better days, but still get it out every now and then because can do a light trim with it.
Yeah, no, they're good. I still rate them as one of the best on the market, even after all these years. It was a front runner early on, and it's still one of the best now.
Yeah. So, got any battery blowers?
Yeah, Husqvarna as well. And that's pretty good for my residential run. I probably use 2 batteries a day, the 300s. But then at the moment, I don't have a charger in the truck, so I bring them inside, charge them up overnight, and take them the next day.
I wouldn't mind betting a lot of people would get through a residential day with one battery in that blower.
Definitely. I'm doing 14 to 16 lawns when I'm doing my big days. And
yeah. So it's a lot.
It's a workload, yeah. And a lot of it, the length of grass we've been cutting, you're cleaning up a fair bit. So
yeah, fair enough. So it does well.
No, I'm happy with it. All in all, I had some teething issues early on with the Husky unit, especially the hedge trimmer. It was just the motor near the blades there.
Yeah.
But that was all through warranty. They resoldered it, refixed everything, and it's all good.
Yeah.
Learn a lot over the years now with fixing your own equipment when you don't want to wait. So
that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I think that people who are running solo, you'll find that doing a lot of your own repairs and maintenance will be a huge time saver and help you with getting your productivity up, because often you'll find if you rely on the mower shop to do it all for you, that there'll be times where they just can't get to it when you need it done.
Yeah, and I find, like everything, when you're working on it yourself, you almost do a better job, Gary, sometimes.
Yeah. It depends on your dealer. I've got dealers that I would trust with my life and other dealers which it's like, no way.
Yeah, and it depends on their workload. Like they're under the pump, they just want to fix it quickly, it's like you can let them know too, or just patch it up, just I want to get through this season or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's certain things when you do know, and if you can do it, it's beneficial for sure, like hugely beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to go back to vehicles for a minute. Now, you're using a truck, and if people haven't seen your truck, jump on your social media and have a look at that. The Mowing Mentor is the Instagram account?
At the Mowing Mentor. Instagram, Facebook. DPH Handyman and Yard Maintenance is on Facebook still, but same thing.
Yeah, okay. So when you bought the truck, you went from a ute and trailer to the truck, which means most of the time you don't need to tow a trailer.
Correct. Yep.
I opted to go for a van, and the idea with the van is with mulching, you don't need to take away grass clippings very often and can just tow the trailer if I need to do a lot of green waste.
Yes.
But how have you found the truck in terms of improving your efficiency and your productivity?
Yeah, honestly, the fuel economy was very surprising. It's
Yeah,
improved it greatly. Just carrying a trailer around, everyone knows the expenses with tyres alone. Just you're doing your reverse turns, and that one tyre just wears out every time, and you're rotating tyres, and
yep,
punctures, and there's just all these add-ons that like wires breaking, like we were speaking about earlier, and
yeah,
things like that. I really believe the truck has just improved efficiency greatly. We've turned it around in tight estates,
yeah.
getting access to commercial properties, acreages even.
Yeah, now it's a fairly small truck, isn't it? So it's
Yeah,
definitely going to be noticeably bigger than driving a ute.
yeah. No, I would say like if you're a decent driver, you'd have no worries. It's not
Yeah,
anything. It's no wider than towing most trailers.
yeah,
Typically, the 12x7 trailer was wider than the truck. So
yeah. So
um,
maneuverability wise, it's going to be better than when you have a trailer on,
yeah,
but it's not going to be quite as efficient as if you're driving a vehicle without a trailer, like a ute or a van or something like that.
yeah, that's right. The ute, if you're just going to stick to residentials, that's where I recommend that. If you're going into acreage markets and you can afford to sit at a property for a few hours on end, then the truck makes sense, and that's sort of why I got it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So you're able to fit all the tools you need on the back of the truck, and obviously
yeah,
you're not collecting a lot of grass clippings.
no, not at all.
Are you doing many jobs where you do green waste removal?
Yeah, I have, and on them days, I just schedule it for a day where I've got nothing else on but green waste
Yeah,
cleanups. Typically, lately, I've had to break my rule and work a Friday to do that
yeah, okay,
because 4 days of the week it's set up and it doesn't make sense to unload,
yes.
leave all your equipment at a house and hope for the best that no one takes it. It's
No,
not
it
worth
actually
doing
makes
that.
more
So
sense to push those jobs to a different day. I've had so many times where you're doing a lawn for a customer and they're like, "Oh, can you do a bit of a cleanup for me? Take some branches
yeah,
away, whatever." And it's like, "Well, no,
not really. Yeah, no, and that's the beauty with it now. I just point to that. I got no room anymore.
yeah,
So that's
yeah." And
helped in
let's
that
face it,
regard.
if you're doing that cleanup at the same time, then often that would mean you got to do a visit to the trip in between jobs, which is not going to be good for your productivity.
No, that's right. And it all eats in, and that's the thing. It's keeping to your schedule with the
Yeah.
vehicles that you have. It all helps having that efficiency.
And there are businesses in Brisbane where I notice that's what they do. So a lot of Brisbane businesses will expect to collect some golden cane palm branches and grass clippings and whatever else. And they just allow for the fact that they're towing around grass clippings and golden cane for a week at a time before they go
Yeah,
to the tip and dump it. And it's like, I don't understand how they can collect that much stuff before they go to the tip.
yeah. Now I've got a few guys around here in the local area. You see their rigs all set up and parked up and full of
Yeah.
green waste all week long, and I'm like, well, they said it makes sense to save it all up and do it all in one big hit rather than going every day. But
Yeah.
yeah, it would have to get a nice smell up, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, you really want a poly liner in your trailer or your tub or wherever you
Yeah,
keep in that
well,
green waste so that you don't rust your trailer out or
correct.
whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a lot
Is
of
it?
considerations with that.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
no, I think the truck has really surprised me, especially that fuel economy.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a huge surprise because I thought, oh well, it's pretty heavy itself, the truck, but yeah, my fuel bills don't lie each week. It's sort of doing the same amount of work and using less fuel.
yeah. So if you're driving a ute, at best without a trailer on, the ute might get under 10 litres per 100.
Yep.
I know there are utes currently that claim around 7 litres per 100.
Yeah, if you're doing highway driving, you'll get that, but around town, probably around that ten's fair.
Highway driving typically means 80 kilometres an hour or slower too, because if you're doing 110 kilometres an hour, a ute is not aerodynamic and they get worse fuel economy.
Yeah, especially if they've only got 5 gears and you're doing 120 as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so that perfect fuel economy is doing 80 kilometres an hour, no stopping and starting with red lights, driving in traffic, anything like that. It's just, yeah.
yeah, that's right.
But you add a trailer on,
Yep, you're up around 17, 18
yeah,
sometimes.
typically. And my Hilux ute, it's supposed to do around 7 to 8 litres per 100, but it's
Yeah,
doing around 12 litres per 100 just driving without a trailer.
yeah, yep. Yeah,
So,
and you add a few
yes,
toolboxes to the back, a bit of weight in the tray, and yeah, it all adds up.
Yeah. So your truck, I'm guessing, is getting around that 12 litre per 100 mark all
Yep.
the time,
Yep. That's
which
exactly
is
what it is.
so much better.
11.8 to 12.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes a massive difference to the cost, cost of running your vehicle and your
Yes.
trailer,
Yep.
but also makes a big difference to the productivity because you don't have to worry about the trailer. You don't have to worry about all those other factors that come along with it.
Yeah, that's right. The only caveat will be the servicing.
Yeah.
Just the cost of dearer being a truck, but eventually once it's out of warranty, you can take it to a local mechanic. It's pretty serviceable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you can get that cheaper down the track.
Sounds good.
Hmm.
So is there any other equipment that we should touch on?
Uh,
I think we've covered it.
yeah, no, I think we're pretty good. Just them robot mowers, that's a big one. So we've definitely covered those.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of value in looking at that, and whether it's the small robots or the big right stander that is
Yeah,
robotized.
that's right. Now, I think I'll touch on with the truck, just one thing, the custom ramp that I'll be looking at getting,
Yeah.
just to enable me to take the 30-inch mower as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that way I've got the best of all worlds, and I don't have to worry about the ramps loading on and off.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you do the figures with them ramps, they're 26 kilos each, roughly. You're doing 14 to 16 lawns a day, and you're unloading, reloading,
Yep.
2 times ramps, and you're looking at a fair chunk there. So that's my gym workout for the day.
Yeah. So I know that weight is going to be noticeable. Have you looked at putting a hydraulic assistance on the ramps?
Yeah, I've looked at all these different options at the moment because of the height of my garage to get it in there. I need to keep that ramp lower.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the only consideration I've got to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, a custom ramp is definitely on the cards, whether or not it's just a fold out one that can collapse.
A double folding one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still hydraulic. But yeah, you get that height gain. You gain that height difference.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's sounds interesting. Be interesting to see what happens with that. And I want to touch on that when we're finishing up now.
Yep.
In terms of what you think you might do different in the future. So over the next 12
Yes.
months or the next 5 years, what's your plans?
Yeah, so custom ramp, number one for the truck.
Yep. Yeah.
Probably gain a couple more acreage clients would be ideal. I've just got that 60-40 split at the moment. So
Yep.
60% is acreage commercial, 40% residential. And I find that's good for winter when jobs slow down. You've got all your residential clients that you can just draw on for extra jobs, such as pressure cleaning or all the handyman stuff if I ever need it, which isn't an issue these days because I've gone to the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for winter.
Yeah,
so
okay.
June, July, and August, each one of them, I'll just take the 2 weeks off and everyone's on monthly visits. And that worked perfect
sounding
this
like
year,
a West Australian doing that.
yeah, no, it bloody worked perfect this year and gave me time to even get up there for the boys with the Queensland event that took place. So
yeah, that was good.
yeah, I'll be implementing that into the future as much as I can and still try and keep that 10 days off we get at Christmas time as well.
Yeah, that's the way.
So yeah, about working less, earning that same profit margin really, Gary.
That's what you want.
Stick to that 4-day work week because that is hard to force yourself to stay at it. But
yeah, especially when you know you can fit in a cleanup job on a Friday.
Oh, you could work 24/7, as you know. The work never stops. If you go looking for it, it's there. And
yeah,
I will make mention for everyone listening, the groups that I do join in the local area.
Yeah,
I post to probably 20 to 30 groups when I was pumping it for work. And when I mention to people, well, you got to post like every day. And it's like, I post once a week or here and there. And it's not enough. Like if you want it, you've just got to go every single day.
Yeah.
Be focused on what you want to. Everyone sort of shies away from that law of attraction, but I truly believe that there's something to it when you work hard and you put in the reps, not only physically but mentally. You start to really, all your thoughts are steered and directed towards a goal. You will achieve it, but it's a matter of just sticking at it daily and being consistent every single day.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. I'm going to agree with you with what you're saying there. That one of those things is once you own a bright yellow Suzuki Swift, then you see bright yellow Suzuki Swifts everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. The brain pattern recognition. It's a big thing.
So going back to business skills, once you start going, look, I really need $180,000 a year, which is about $14,000 a month, which is going to change to probably $10,000 in winter and $20,000 in summer. And those are just numbers I'm picking out of the air. They're not accurate, right? Once you start thinking along those lines, when you're doing a job, you're going, is this job helping me achieve that goal?
That's right. Yep.
And if it's not helping me achieve that goal, I'm really going to be a little bit unhappy and unsettled because I'm doing a job that I'm going backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's making that call and understanding that you've got to be hard sometimes with yourself and go, well, yes, you're busy. Yes, you got work, but do you want to be busy or do you want to be productive? And you want to actually earn your dollars and not be in pain when you get home because you're so exhausted because you've run around like a chook with its head cut off. Yeah. And you're just trying to chase your tail all the time. So, yeah, you get clear on your goals and your vision. And that's the biggest thing I give advice to people is that's the biggest hurdle for them because you look in the mirror, that's the only one that's going to change it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I tell people is what do you want to achieve? And how badly do you want to achieve it?
Yep.
And then let's talk again in 2 weeks and see what you've done.
That's
to
right.
Change.
It's that big why.
If you're not changing, if you're not focused on that goal and you're not changing to get there, then you're telling me that the goal's not actually important to you.
Yeah, and it depends. Like a lot of people, they say they want to help their kids out and things like that. And it's like, well, if you really do want to help them, then look at other ways that you could potentially be doing that. And that's listening to podcasts such as these, and there's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of knowledge in any field. It doesn't have to be just related to this industry, but the amount of podcasts I've chewed through over the years, and they've helped shape who I am and the business and everything.
Yeah.
It all helps.
Yeah, I can definitely recommend listening to podcasts as a way of helping your business. I know a good one too.
Yes. There's a few. No, I respect everyone that's doing that. Benny and BJ and Luke Smith, I really appreciate you guys if you're listening. You're doing a great service to this industry, and we all thank you for it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for them. I know when I first started the podcast, I was the first Australian person doing a lawn care podcast.
Yes, yep.
And Ben and BJ jumped on it like a week after.
Yeah.
And then Luke came along a little while after that. And it's like, you know what? It's not a case of going, I don't want competition. It's a case of going, you know what? We're building a bigger, stronger community.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I think everything I've touched on in the past with Benny and BJ, we buried everything, buried the hatchet, so to speak, and any dramas that we ever once had, it's not a personal attack on one another. It was, we have a certain way we like doing things, and we're pretty headstrong, so we just stick to our guns, and
Well, look, let's just say it blatantly. Ben's wrong. Catch Pro, catching the grass. I know, Ben, it works for you.
Yep.
But mulching the grass is good, and it's a great business model.
And I the utmost respect for Ben, though, what he's done and the engineering behind what he's achieved. It's truly admirable. It's just that I don't do it.
Look, I say it in jest because ultimately I think that there's two different things that both work well. There's a business model, there's a method of mowing, there's however you want to describe it.
Yep.
They both have their own application and they're both good, achievable ways of doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the advice I give, first thing I say, do you catch? And everything. I'm like, well, do you think maybe implementing some mulching into your practices would be beneficial? And they go, I hadn't really thought about it. And it's like, well, that's straight up, just in that alone, the efficiency gain, and therefore the profit margins, because you can get more jobs done in a day. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I honestly believe it's horses for courses. If you catch everything, you'll probably find that there's jobs you're catching which are ridiculous for the purpose that the job needs. Yep. And yes, Daniel Smith's going to hate me for saying that, but anyway, he'll get over it. Ultimately, if you're doing a big acreage and you're side discharging, that's the best way to do a big acreage. If you're doing a medium-sized residential yard and you're mulching it, that's probably the best way to do that. And if you're doing a lot of small jobs and you're catching them all, that's probably the best way to do those jobs.
Yeah, I think in nursing homes, retirement villages, it does definitely have a place.
Yeah.
You don't want the elderly in 3 inches of grass because typically they're going to trip over. So that, yeah, everything's got its own place, but where you can, and if you can educate your clients to be better for their lawn themselves,
Yep.
the less work, less sprays required because you are keeping that lawn nice and thick and tight. Yeah, less chemicals going down on the ground. That's a better thing for the whole world. So,
Yep. Sounds good to me.
yeah.
But I think you should be doing it with robotic mowers and 20 mil cut height.
I'll do that a go. Give that a go next season for you.
You'll love it. And just a word of warning, once you're approaching winter, you can raise the cut height a little bit and then take it back down once the growth comes back.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, yeah.
No,
No, that's great.
No worries.
Daniel, I appreciate you getting in the dungeon with me in this hot and sweaty dungeon.
Yeah, all right, mate. Thank you.
Been good fun.
It has.
And we have some differences, but we come together when we're ganging up on Ben and BJ. So
yeah, as a whole, I think we're all in agreement for most of that. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, but whilst we have a minor difference, I think it's it's just an opinion.
Yeah, no.
So yeah,
I think I'd like to just quickly mention the 2-worker, if I could.
Yeah.
Everyone discusses this recently, and I think
yes,
you can have great profit margins, but the headaches of quality of work, breakdowns, fix-ups, all of that combined, I've done it sort of over the last few years, and this last 12 months being solo, really opened my eyes up to what I can do on my own, and the net profit, that speaks for itself.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's a bunch of factors that come in there, and Luke Smith started this debate, and Ben and BJ bit big time when they saw Luke talking about the inefficiency of a 2-person team.
Yeah, and it can be great, camaraderie and having a mate with you and doing the work, and yeah, it does make the work easier to an extent.
So Luke's right. The inefficiencies of a 2-man team are there, right? You're not going to be as productive as you are when you're on your own.
Yep.
The thing that Ben and BJ are right about is that if you are going from being on your own to growing your business, the most efficient and effective way to add to your business is through a 2-person team.
Yep, 100%. That was the biggest growth I had with all the equipment, gear, everything.
Yeah.
Was when I had 2.
Yeah. So your productivity is going to hit a peak when you're solo. There is a maximum amount of productivity you can achieve when you're solo, and you can achieve more with a 2-person team.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I just think the weighing up the tax bill and the expenses and just all of the stuff combined. Obviously, you'd finish at a certain time and still pay that worker for a full day. So all of that eats into your profits as well. And
definitely,
as much as you do that, it's a good thing. I was paying top dollar for everyone.
Yeah. Well, look, I think running solo, you are nimble and you're going to outperform a business that is running multiple employees.
Yes. Yeah, especially when it's your own business.
Yeah, you're motivated to be more productive, to make more money per hour when you're running solo.
Yep.
So somebody who has the goal of running a business rather than being self-employed, typically speaking, is going to want to have employees. And the best way to do that is to go, okay, what type of work are we going to target that we can put employees on and know that they can do the job? Because ultimately, I can't be sitting there babysitting every employee if I want to grow a business.
No, that's right.
So that's where you go, okay, 2-man teams are really good because you know that they hold each other accountable. They're going to be somewhat productive. There's various things you can implement to make sure they're not just goofing off and smoking or hanging out at Macca's or the service station. There's various different things you can do with 2-man teams. The other thing you can do is you can go, okay, let's look for large commercial contracts where I can put numerous people on one site for a long period of time, like BJ's done.
Yeah, you're just camping out at that site all day long.
You might have 3 or 4 people there for a day at a time, and then they might go to another large site, and that's another effective way of growing your business. So there's multiple ways of doing it, but the 2-man team, like you say, massively inefficient it's massively inefficient, isn't it?
It is, and it's just the stress factor I found. Growing, I had up to 5 at one stage, and just the amount of checkups, fix-ups, liaising with clients, and sorry, I'll be back, I'll fix that, or do whatever, and there's just so many things out of your control that I want to have a family life, and that's what I did the business for.
So you said you had 5 people working with you?
Yeah, so
At one
whether
stage?
that was full-time subbies, so to speak, or it was employees with subbies, and
Yeah. Okay.
so people running around everywhere, and we had up to 4 in the dual cab with us at one stage there.
It gets challenging, doesn't it? And I found this interesting when I've had people working with me. I've had anywhere from 1 person working with me through to 4 people working on one job at a time.
Yep.
And a lot of people just don't get it when you say, oh, how much do I charge
Yeah.
to have 4 people in one place for an hour?
Yep. Yeah, it's
And
the
it's
same
like,
as what
okay.
you're getting. You just times it by 4.
Well, it's
To
not
an
always
extent.
it's not always going to be the case, right?
No,
So
it's not, especially in
this is
villages.
this is like the 2-man team question,
Yes.
right? If I take myself from one job to another and use you as an example, you do 12 to 16 jobs in a day,
Yep.
right? Every travel time is only for Dan.
Yes.
That's downtime, it's unbillable hours, whatever it is. You put 4 people in the cab with you, and then you're multiplying the downtime by 4. If
Yep.
I take those same 5 people, so you plus your 4 offsiders, subcontractors, whatever they might be,
Yep.
and I say, all right, turn up at this address at 7 a.m. and you're done at 3 p.m.
Yep. Much easier.
I'm not paying you to go there, and I'm not paying you to leave.
Yeah.
And all the tools are on site, all the swims documents, all that sort of stuff, because you got to have that when you're on one site like that. Then
Yep.
it's all done, it's all accounted for. And by comparison, if I'm doing a bunch of residential jobs where you've got those unbillable hours, I need to be charging around $100 to $150 an hour. Where I've got those 5 people sitting on one site for a whole day, I can get away with charging, and I've heard people say as low as $50 an hour, but I'd say $80 to $90 an hour is really profitable for a
Yep.
team of people where they don't have to run around to different sites.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that figure that you come up with, like what I do, lawns at 14 to 16, it wasn't like I was doing 32 when I had another worker with me. It just didn't work.
It
You'd get
doesn't
maybe
double, does it?
No, you got maybe 24. I think was the most we ever pushed.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that is because I did it all in one day on my own when he was sick one day, and I just had to do all of them. 9.5 hours straight through, just pumping them out.
I've done residential days like that, and I have managed to do double the workload on one day with an employee.
Yes.
But it was in a situation where the route density was superb. So we
Yep.
spent the whole day on one street.
Yep. Yeah, I found 2 workers really shone when you had block rates, because the clients wouldn't question the hourly figures as much because you've got 2 workers, they see the labour.
Yeah.
And you can sort of, as soon as they saw, I mean, that was a transition I had to go through when I was becoming solo and set pricing. I'm like, well, the work's getting done.
Yeah.
All the same, I've increased efficiencies with my gear. Productivity's gone through the roof.
Yep.
I've gotten quicker because I've been here 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So, all of that is a factor, and obviously inflation, interest rates, everything plays into it. So,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there's multiple factors that need to be considered when you're looking at growing a business like that, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the beauty of it. Everyone can do so many variables, and it's exciting and it's fun and it's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop a little bit of a promo in here. I'm going to say if people are struggling with their business and they need some direction,
Yep.
that you are a good person for them to reach out to. Look up Instagram at the Mowing Mentor.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be fine.
I'm happy to talk to people as well. I do get calls from listeners occasionally asking for advice, and I'm happy to take some calls and listen to people and give some advice. And Prez Madley is another guy that I've done a couple of episodes with, and he's a little bit different to you or I. He really focuses on the corporate approach, the KPI, the other corporate ideas that people use to improve their management, improve their skills, improve their leadership, all those different sorts of things. He's really good when people are wanting to take that more corporate approach.
Yeah, the measurements and the details, finer details.
Yeah, so there's 3 people you can reach out to. If you're struggling with your business or you want to do something to improve your business, reach out to Dan, the Mowing Mentor, reach out to me, reach out to Prez Madley.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that.
Different approach from each of us, But if you don't reach out and you keep doing the same thing over and over again and wishing it was different, there's a saying for that.
Yeah, we can't help you. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Anyway.
no, that's it. No, it's all to benefit everyone else, and that's what it is. Lift everyone else up.
Yeah, definitely. So on that note, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Dan. Appreciate your time.
No dramas, mate. Thank you for having me.
No.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.